Chapter 1491. Not long after, a hustle and bustle could be heard from outside. It was clear that Pucha and his men had barged in. It was fortunate that Song Qing Shu had mastered the art of disguise. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to disguise himself as Wan Yin Shui in such a short time. Even so, he didn't dare to be careless. He was afraid that the lack of time would lead to an unexpected mistake. Wan Yin Ping saw his apprehension and quickly said, "I'll go out and buy some time. You can inspect the room." She ran out. Soon, her delicate shout could be heard from outside. "How dare you barge into His Majesty's palace?" Glancing at Wan Yin Ping, Pucha smiled insincerely. "If I remember correctly, you're Tang Quobian's sister-in-law. As the saying goes, the sister-in-law is the brother-in-law's little cotton-padded jacket. It seems to be true today." Wan Yin Ping's face turned red. "What do you mean?" Pucha said coldly. "I now suspect that the emperor in the palace isn't the real emperor, but an impostor created by Tang Quobian." Preposterous. Wan Yin Ping unsheathed her saber. Her subordinates followed suit. "You've misled the people with your lies. You deserve to be punished." Pucha didn't care about her threat at all. Instead, he unsheathed his sword. "Just because your saber is sharp, my sword isn't?" His subordinates also unsheathed their weapons and confronted the men from the laundry yard. Because they had the advantage in numbers, Qiu Qianren was worried that Wan Yin Ping would be at a disadvantage. He led his subordinates to surround Ott's men from the outside. Layer after layer, the atmosphere was tense. Seeing that a battle would break out at the slightest sign of trouble, the door to the palace finally opened. Hui Wesher walked out and said, "His Majesty already knows why you've come." He was originally furious, but considering that the Southern Song dynasty's northern expedition is imminent, in order to stabilize the army's morale and keep the court's civil and military officials in harmony, he has agreed to accept the inspection by these elders. Hui Wesher was now the head of the inner attendants, so no one found it strange to see her. Pucha was inwardly shocked. At first, he had guessed that the other party would never agree to let his men inspect the room and had prepared to take advantage of the situation. Who would have thought that the other party would act in such a way and agree to be inspected? Isn't he afraid of being exposed? At this moment, Pucha and Ahu began to doubt whether the emperor was real or not. But when he thought of all the information he had received, he calmed down. Humph, he's just putting on an act. I was almost fooled. If he's really the emperor, how could he tolerate someone else inspecting him? Pucha was originally only 90% sure, but now he was 100% sure. After the old men entered, Pucha and Ahu prepared to enter as well, but they were stopped by Hui Wesher at the door. His Majesty has already broken a heaven-defying rule by allowing people to inspect the palace. How can he allow unrelated people to enter and watch? You're saying that I'm an outsider? Pucha roared angrily. Of course not, General Pucha. You can enter, but your subordinates can't, Emissary Hui Wes said coldly. Pucha's breath caught in his throat. Looking at the deep bedchamber, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Could it be that they're purposely sending my subordinates away so that they can catch a turtle in a jar? The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. The image of the great General He Jin at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, who had also held the military power of the world in his hands, came to mind. He was so frightened that he hurriedly waved his hands and said, "Haha, I won't go in, lest I disturb His Majesty." The surrounding people had strange expressions on their faces. You brought so many soldiers to force an abdication and still say that you're afraid of disturbing His Majesty. But since the leaders didn't enter, the others could only stand far away at the door. Fortunately, the bedchamber wasn't closed, and they could roughly see the situation inside from the door. They saw the emperor sitting in the imperial study, and the elders that Pucha had brought with him first kowtowed to him, then got up and walked over. Looking at him from afar, His Majesty still seems to be the same emperor, many people thought. Only Pucha secretly sneered. Even if you're pretending to be the same, can your physical characteristics be the same? These elders were the most respected figures in the Jurchen tribe, and they could be said to have watched His Majesty grow up. How could a fake fool their eyes? Even if the physical characteristics are the same, it can't be the same memory, can it? Ever since he was young, His Majesty has experienced so many things. If he were to casually ask the impostor about any of them, she would be exposed. Pucha Ahute glanced in Tang Kwa Bien's direction, but he couldn't see any change in the latter's expression. He was very pleased. During this period of time, Tang Kwa Bien had eliminated dissidents and promoted the members of the Tang family without restraint, causing many of them to be transferred away from important positions. Now, as long as Tang Kwa Bien was removed, the Jin kingdom would belong to the Tang family. Everyone looked nervously in the direction of the imperial study. They saw the elders begin to approach the emperor, and they even untied the emperor's dragon robe to examine certain parts of his body. At the same time, there seemed to be a few elders asking the emperor some questions. Unfortunately, they were too far away to hear what they were saying. I wonder what the result will be. Everyone present felt uneasy. Even Goodbye, Wan Yinping, and the others were uneasy. Only Pucha Ahute was the calmest. After a while, the elders stood up and bowed to the emperor again, then slowly retreated from the bedchamber. Pucha Ahute frowned, thinking that since it was proven that he was a fake, why did they still bow to him? But on second thought, even if these old foxes had seen through the flaw, they wouldn't dare to reveal anything, lest the other party would kill them in anger. With this thought, his somewhat anxious heart calmed down. After the elders left the door, Pucha Ahute walked over with a smile. What's the result? You found out that he's a fake, haven't you? The leader of the elders gave him a meaningful look, then walked directly to where Tang Kwa Bien was, and said, "After our continuous examination, we can confirm that." He paused, and seeing that he had attracted everyone's attention, he said, "His Majesty is the real deal. He wasn't impersonated. Didn't I say that His Majesty was a fake?" Pucha Ahute replied instinctively, but his expression suddenly froze, and he looked at the person in disbelief. "What did you say?" The plan he had plotted for so long had suddenly failed at the last moment. In that instant, his mind went blank, and he instinctively became stern, scaring the elders into taking a step back. Goodbye stepped forward and sneered. "What? Are you trying to threaten them?" "What threaten? The one inside is clearly a fake." Sensing the commotion among his subordinates, Pucha Ahute immediately panicked. Although Goodbye didn't know how Song Qing-shu had done it, she knew that if she didn't seize this opportunity, she would have lived in vain in the imperial family. "Don't be afraid. If you have something to say, just say it. With me here, no one can hurt you." The leader said, "We've carefully examined His Majesty's body. There are some hidden characteristics that even the concubines might not know about, but we've watched His Majesty grow up, so we naturally know everything about him. At the same time, we asked His Majesty some things about his childhood. At that time, he wasn't the emperor yet, not even the crown prince. Naturally, he didn't have any servants by his side. It can be said that other than us and the real emperor, no one else knows about those things. Just now, we asked 4 or 5 questions, and His Majesty answered them all clearly. How is this possible? How is this possible?" The sudden change from heaven to hell made Pucha a little crazy, and he kept muttering to himself. Goodbye took the opportunity to say, "It's already very clear. His Majesty is the real emperor, but someone has ill intentions and is using this as an excuse to commit treason." "Nonsense." Pucha Ahute snapped out his daze. "You must have been bribed. Yes, you must have been bribed by Tang Kwa Bien." As he spoke, he pointed at the old men and scolded them. The old men were all people of high status in the Nuzan tribe, and being slandered like this, they couldn't take it anymore. "Ahute, what nonsense are you spouting? We're old men with half a foot in the grave. Who can bribe us? We speak with our conscience, with the justice in our hearts." The old men spoke at once, rebuking Pucha Ahute with the attitude of an elder, making him fly into a rage. "My sons, follow me to purge the emperor's side." Pucha and Ahu unsheathed their swords, but other than his most trusted subordinates who raised their weapons, the rest of the soldiers looked at each other, their eyes filled with suspicion. If the emperor was a fake, then they would be bringing order out of chaos, and all of them would be rewarded. But if the emperor was real, then wouldn't they be rebelling? After all, in this world, rebelling was a crime punishable by 9 familial executions. Who would dare not hesitate? Ahute, how much longer do you want to keep this up? Song Qingshu appeared at the palace gates in the guise of Wan Yinping. Gobai immediately knelt down and said, "Greetings, your majesty. Long live the emperor." The elders of the imperial clan that Ahu had specially found felt that they had been instigated to offend the emperor and were worried about how to atone for their crimes. Seeing this, they hurriedly knelt down and shouted louder than anyone else, "Long live our emperor!" Wan Yinping and her subordinates from the laundry brothel also knelt on the ground, while Qiu Qianren and the imperial guards followed suit. "Long live the emperor!" Chants of "Long live the emperor!" resounded throughout the palace. No one knew who started it, but Pucha Ahute's soldiers also threw down their weapons and knelt on the ground, shouting "Long live the emperor!" Seeing that only a few hundred of his most trusted subordinates were left, their faces pale and their eyes filled with despair, Pucha Ahute knew that everything was over. Chapter 1492. Pucha Ahute had previously served as the commander of the Jin Kingdom's front line, so his martial arts were naturally not weak. His final struggle was frightening, and many of the palace guards didn't even have time to react before he reached the emperor. Song Qingshu frowned. With his martial arts, dealing with Pucha Ahute wasn't difficult, but with so many people watching, he couldn't reveal his martial arts. After all, Wan Yinshui wasn't an expert in martial arts. However, he didn't panic, knowing that someone would step in to help. As expected, Pucha Ahute grinned maliciously at the sight of the emperor, but before he could rejoice, a white-robed old man appeared in front of him. Ouyang Feng. Pucha Ahute immediately recognized him. This #1 expert under Tang Quobian was naturally one of his main targets of study. He had also heard of Western Poison's reputation in the Jianghu, but he had always been famous for his martial arts and didn't think much of these Jianghu heroes. If you're really that powerful, why would you need to lick blood on the edge of blade? You're already a valiant general whose name shakes the country. Pucha Ahute sneered inwardly. Instead of advancing or retreating, he sped up his sword and stabbed at Ouyang Feng. In his mind, it wouldn't be difficult for him to force Ouyang Feng back with his superior might. As long as he could force Ouyang Feng back, wouldn't it be easy to subdue the fake emperor who wasn't skilled in martial arts? Unexpectedly, Ouyang Feng's face was expressionless. He raised his hands and, like 2 soft snakes, pierced through Pucha Ahute's defenses from an unbelievable angle and grabbed at his chest. Pucha Ahute's strength instantly drained away and his sword drooped lifelessly. In that moment, his mind was filled with shock. How can his hands be longer than my sword? Song Qingshu glanced at him, as if reading his doubts. The Spirit Snake Fist was a trump card that Ouyang Feng had spent decades researching to deal with the other 5 uniques. Even the 5 uniques would be caught unprepared when facing it for the first time, much less a mere Pucha Ahute. By this time, the palace guards had reacted, and several swords were pressed against Pucha Ahute's neck. Seeing that the situation was settled, Song Qingshu said, "Pucha and Ahu are guilty of treachery and have been thrown into prison. Tang Quobian is ordered to investigate the rest of the gang." He paused for a moment and looked at the soldiers around him. As for the soldiers here, most of them were threatened by him. "As long as you put down your weapons, I will let bygones be bygones." Pucha and Ahu had brought thousands of elite soldiers this time. Although their morale was low, if they were forced into a corner, they might do something desperate. Song Qingshu did not want to have another internal strife at this critical juncture and lose their strength. These soldiers had already lost their morale and had long wanted to surrender. However, they were worried that they would be implicated, so they held their weapons in order to feel more at ease. Hearing the emperor's words, how could they still hesitate? They threw away their weapons and knelt on the ground. Long live the emperor! Only Pucha and Ahute's hundreds of bodyguards were left standing there, looking at each other in dismay. If their commander was still here, they might have fought to the death with him. But now that Ahyut had been captured alive, what meaning was there for them to resist? After hesitating for a long time, the group of soldiers finally put down their weapons. Qiu Qianren waved his hand, and the imperial guards went over to restrain these people. However, they had already lost all hope and were at Song Qingshu's mercy. Very soon, Pu Cha and Ahyut were thrown into prison, and the bodyguards under his command were also detained. Song Qingshu began to reward them according to their contributions. The first to be rewarded was naturally Tang Kuobian, followed by Ouyang Feng, Qiu Qianren, and the imperial guards under their command. Wan Yinping and the secret agents of the laundry yard were also rewarded. Even the elders that Pu Cha and Ahyut had found were rewarded. After all, to a certain extent, they had proven that Song Qingshu's identity was beyond doubt. Next, Qiu Qianren led the troops to raid Pu Cha's family. After all, the family head had committed the crime of treason. How could their family escape punishment? I had wanted to use this opportunity of the Southern Song dynasty's northern expedition to purge the Jin forces and replace the army with my own. Now that Pu Cha and Ahyut have rebelled, it has saved me a lot of trouble. After settling the matters outside, Song Qingshu, goodbye, Wan Yinping, and Tajkis returned to his bedroom, deep in thought. However, when he thought of Pu Cha and Qiu Chao, Song Qingshu could not help but frown. If they were involved in a case of treason, she would definitely be implicated. Although the two of them did not have any feelings for each other, they had a night of intimacy after all. As if sensing his worry, Tajkis smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will secretly ask someone to protect Pu Cha and Qiu Chao." Goodbye and Wan Yinping looked at him strangely. Goodbye was one thing, but Wan Yinping could not hide her thoughts. "Brother-in-law, when did you and Qiu Chao have an affair?" Song Qingshu's face darkened. "What do you mean by having an affair?" "It's just that we were comrades when we went to besiege Chongyang Palace together. Moreover, Pu Cha and Ahyut are loyal subjects of the Jin Kingdom. It was only because of me that my family was thrown into the abyss of treason. I naturally feel somewhat guilty." "That's right. Ahyut is still loyal to the royal family," Gobai nodded, "so I will do my best to protect them." "Since you all agreed to protect them, then so be it." Wan Yinping curled her lips. "Oh right, the king of Zhao has an engagement with Pu Cha's family. I wonder if they are involved in this matter?" At her reminder, Song Qingshu remembered that the king of Zhao and Pu Cha's family had been betrothed before they were born. It was a pity that Wan Yin she had decreed that Yanghua and Pu Cha Qiu Chao would be engaged. It was a pity that Wan Yin she had decreed the marriage and Yanghua had fled, causing the wedding to not take place. I wonder where Yanghua is now. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. He would never let go of Xiao Long Nu, but his fiancée Pu Cha Qiu Chao had accidentally gotten involved with him. What a mess. It doesn't matter if the king of Zhao's faction is involved or not. Now that the Southern Song dynasty is about to invade, it is not advisable to expand their influence. Of course, it is necessary to beat them up in secret, Gobai said. Following that, they began discussing how to clean up the Pu Cha's officials. After a while, someone from the laundry brothel suddenly rushed in to report. "What is it that makes you so flustered? Can't you wait for me to return?" Wan Yinping glared at her subordinate in dissatisfaction at the interruption of her conversation with her brother-in-law. The man braced himself and said, "There is urgent news. It is a matter of great importance. This subordinate does not dare to delay." "What news? Speak," Wan Yinping said lightly. The secret agent looked awkwardly at Gobai and Tajkis. One must know that the laundry brothel was a secret intelligence agency of the Jin Kingdom. It only answered to the emperor. Now that there were outsiders present, he was worried that the news would be leaked. Song Qingshu looked at his expression and knew what he was worried about. He said, "No matter, we are all on the same side here. Speak." "Yes, Your Majesty," the secret agent replied. "We have just received a secret report from the Liao branch. The Southern Song dynasty's envoy is about to arrive at Shangjing." Now that Liao's territory was being forced to shrink by the Jin and Qin kingdoms, it only had territory in Shaanxi and Inner Mongolia. Naturally, Shangjing was not the capital of the Khitan kingdom in his previous life. Instead, the Liao nobles renamed Taiyuan as Shangjing to commemorate their former glory. Isn't this to be expected? Why are you making such a fuss? Wang Yanping said with dissatisfaction. Song Qingshu also felt that the secret agent was a little impatient. However, the secret agent's next piece of news shocked everyone. There is news from Liao. It is said that Liao has formed an alliance with Western Xia. Song Qingshu, goodbye, and the others looked at each other and saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. In the early years, Western Xia was a vassal of Liao. However, there were occasional battles between them and Liao. When Liao was at its peak, its army of hundreds of thousands was defeated by Western Xia by relying on the right timing, sandstorms, geographical advantage, the Gobi Desert, and the unity of its people. Liao suffered heavy losses, and their relationship was not good. Later on, when the Jin kingdom rose, Western Xia immediately changed sides and became the Jin's most loyal ally. Now that they heard that Western Xia and Liao had formed an alliance, how could they not be shocked? The Southern Song dynasty's northern expedition was imminent. The Jin kingdom was already struggling to deal with the Southern Song dynasty, the Redcoat army, the Mongolians, and Liao. If Western Xia were to attack from the west, the Jin kingdom will be surrounded by enemies from all sides. Western Xia has always been on good terms with our country. Do you have any proof that they have formed an alliance with Liao? Gobai couldn't help but ask. According to reliable information, Liao is preparing to marry a princess to the crown prince of Western Xia. They will set off in a few days. Once the marriage is completed, the strongest alliance will be formed. The secret agent replied, "Only a princess? That's not the worst case." Tajtish couldn't help but say. She had been by Changshan King's side before and naturally knew some of the rules of the imperial family. Although the title of a princess was a big deal to ordinary people in Jianghu, there were thousands of members of the imperial family. It was rare to find a princess like Zhao Min, whose father was one of the Mongolian tycoons and held great power. Now that the Western Xia had chosen a princess instead of a princess, it proved that there was still room for change. The secret agent had been in the washing clothes yard for many years and was astute in his work. He could easily guess her thoughts. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. But this princess is not an ordinary princess. Not only is she unparalleled in beauty, but more importantly, she is the daughter of the current king of Wei and the privy secretary of the northern courtyard, Yelu Yisin. Xiao Feng's title as the king of the southern courtyard was different from ordinary people's impression. Although the title of king of the southern courtyard sounded great, he might not even be in the top 5 of Liao in terms of official position and power. The highest authority of the Liao kingdom was the North Privy Council, followed by the South Privy Council, the North Prime Minister's Mansion, the South Prime Minister's Mansion, and then the North and South King's Mansions. Liao Kingdom had always been more powerful in the north than in the south. The king of the North Yard was even more powerful than the king of the South Yard. Of course, because of Xiao Feng's ability and the fact that it was a time of great battles, Xiao Feng's position was much higher than the previous kings of the southern courtyard. However, the first person in the imperial court was the privy secretary of the northern courtyard, Yelu Rinxian, who was highly respected. The great Yu of Liao was similar to the grand preceptor of the southern dynasty. He was the head of all the officials and had the same status as the emperor. In the 210 years of Liao, only 3 people were awarded the title of Great Yu. Yelu Horu, who helped Taizu build the country, Yelu Wuji, who prevented the civil war of Liao after Taizong's death, and the last one was Yelu Rinxian. But now he was old. In addition, there were many rebellions in the northwest of Liao, so he had to lead the army to guard the northwest. As a result, the first person in the imperial court was the privy secretary of the northern courtyard, Yelu Yisin. His daughter, as a candidate for marriage, was no less important than the princess. Princess Chun, why does this name sound familiar? Song Qingshu was puzzled. The secret agent replied, "Your Majesty, Princess Chung, and's maiden name is Nanxian." Chapter 1493. Song Qingshu felt his mouth was dry from talking too much. He took a cup of tea to moisten his throat, but when he heard the spy's words, he choked. "Yelu Nanxian? Back in Yangzhou, the two of them had an indescribably intimate relationship. After that, Yellow Nancian left for the north, and Song Qingshu was busy with other things. He hadn't heard from her for a long time. Who would have thought that the first thing he heard from her would be the news that she was going to marry someone? "Are you sure it's Princess Cheng-an, Yellow Nancian?" Song Qingshu asked in an unfriendly tone. After all these years of interaction, he had always had a good impression of Yellow Nancian. Not to mention, the two of them had already had that kind of relationship. How could he sit back and watch her marry another man? Yes, yes. The spy didn't think the emperor would suddenly be so interested and was dazed. After the spy left, Goodbye looked at him strangely. "You know this Princess Chang'an? We've met a few times before." Seeing the women's playful looks, he quickly added, "But not very well." What kind of joke was this? He had just brushed off the topic of Pu Cha Cho Chow, and now Yellow Nancian had come. Even the best-tempered woman would be angry. Goodbye didn't pursue the matter and analyzed. We're in trouble now. If the marriage between Liao and Xixia succeeds, we'll be surrounded by enemies. How about I go to Liao and kill this Princess Chang'an? Without a bride, this marriage won't happen, Wan Yinping suggested. She had seen the strange expression on her brother-in-law's face and felt that he had a shady relationship with this Princess Chang'an. She said this on purpose. Song Qingshu jumped in fright. "Kill her. What? You don't want to?" Wan Yinping snorted. Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. "I'm just worried about you. Yellow Nancian's martial arts are very high, even though she's not as good as the real top experts. But in the younger generation, she's definitely one of the best." Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was clear enough. Wan Yinping's martial arts were not Yellow Nancian's match. Wan Yinping was still a bit indignant, but Goodbye said, all right, the Xing Fu can't leave you. Besides, even if you kill Cheng and Junju, Liao has so many other princesses in Junju. When the time comes, you can just change the marriage. How can you kill them all?" Song Qingshu said, "Leave it to me. I was planning to go to Liao anyway. It's on the way." Goodbye frowned and said, "It's too risky for you to go. You should know that your current identity is not ordinary. As the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand under a collapsing wall." Song Qingshu laughed. "Don't worry. The people of Liao don't know of my relationship with the Jin. Besides, I won't be going there with great fanfare. With my martial arts, I'm afraid no one in the world can stop me." Seeing that Goodbye was still hesitant, Song Qingshu continued. "The Southern Song dynasty is about to launch an expedition to the north. The Jin are not what they used to be. It will be difficult to deal with enemies from all directions. If I don't deal with Liao, it will be dangerous here. Who do you think is better than me to complete this task?" Goodbye thought hard for a while and finally smiled helplessly. "I don't think there is anyone. When do you plan to go?" Taj Tish had been living a very comfortable life these days. Living in the imperial palace was like living in heaven. All of this was given to her by the man in front of her. Now that she saw this young man who was half a year younger than her emotions became very complicated. "I will leave first thing in the morning." Song Qingshu thought that letting Zhao Min wait at the inn was not a long-term plan. He was worried that she would leave impatiently. In such a hurry? Goodbye opened her mouth, but hesitated for a moment. After all, she was still Tang Quobian's wife in name. She could not bring herself to say it in front of others. However, Wan Yinping did not have such concerns. It was inevitable that she would feel a sense of loss if they were to separate again right after reuniting. The Southern Song dynasty will launch an expedition to the north at any time. They are probably waiting to communicate with the other powers before sending their troops. The diplomatic mission will soon arrive at Shanjing. Moreover, once the marriage between Liao and Xixia is completed, everything will be too late. "I have to race against time," Song Qingshu explained. At the same time, he felt a little regret. He had spent too much time escorting Huang Rong back to Peach Blossom Island. However, when he thought of Huang Rong's charming appearance, he suddenly felt that it was all worth it. "I love my country more than my beauty. I really need to change this bad habit of mine." Song Qingshu could not help but ridicule himself. After all, Wan Yinping was from the royal family. Although she was unwilling to part so quickly, she knew what was important. All right, take care. That's right. How did you manage to deceive those old men? Goodbye suddenly recalled and asked. One must know that her heart was in her throat just a moment ago. That's right, that's right. My palms were all sweaty at that time. I was thinking that I might have to risk my life with my men. I don't even know how many people would die. Who knew that there would be such a turn of events? Actually, it's hard to say whether it's easy or difficult. Song Qing-shu did not deliberately mystify her and answered her directly. In order to verify whether I was an imposter or not, those elders stared at me with wide eyes the moment I entered. It would be embarrassing if I didn't hypnotize them. Thus, no matter what they saw or examined, their first reaction was that there was no problem. Standing beside him, Tadish was slightly moved. Although she had vaguely guessed what had happened, it was still rather shocking to hear confirmation from him. After all, silently hypnotizing a few people under the watchful eyes of so many people was indeed rather appalling. This person is like a demon god, causing one to be unable to muster the slightest bit of resistance. Tadish pondered inwardly. If she wanted to break free from his control in the future, wouldn't she be completely defenseless if he used the soul transfer technique on her? She couldn't help but feel incomparably worried. Brother-in-law's ability is truly incredible. As though she knew what Tadish was thinking, Wan Yin-ping asked directly, "Then wouldn't you be able to make any woman in the world fall in love with you? Tell me honestly, have you secretly used it on me and Big Sister?" Hearing her words, Gobai's expression instantly turned unnatural. Although she felt that her emotions were genuine, after witnessing everything, how could she be certain that he hadn't used it on her? Song Qing-shu's face darkened. "I'm not a god. How could I have such great abilities? If that's really the case, why would I need to painstakingly conquer the world? Wouldn't it be better to just have the emperors of every country pass their throne to me?" That's true. Wan Yin-ping's worry turned into joy as she hugged his arm coquettishly. "I don't wish for you to be so incredible. Otherwise, it would feel unreal to be with you. Don't worry. This ability will never be used on you." Song Qing-shu stroked her hair as he solemnly promised. Wan Yin-ping nodded obediently. Even Goodbye's eyes were glistening, clearly extremely touched. After chatting for a while, Goodbye and Wan Yin-ping had no choice but to leave. After all, Goodbye had to handle Tang Kuo-bian's matter, while Wan Yin-ping had to deal with the sea of intelligence in the laundry brothel. Qiu Qianren's raid on Pu Cha's house had some preliminary results, and related matters required them to handle. Because Song Qing-shu hadn't been in the Jin Kingdom for a long time, he was far less familiar with the political affairs here than Goodbye. Moreover, he had to leave early the next morning, so he couldn't overstep his boundaries and instead became the most free person. Soon, only Song Qing-shu and Tadish were left in the bedchamber. Hui Wesher tactfully excused herself. Looking at her back, Song Qing-shu pondered to himself. "I wonder how Tadish managed to subdue her. Are you interested in Yua? Why don't I call her back to serve you in bed?" Tadish asked with a smile that wasn't a smile. Song Qing-shu was speechless. "Am I such a despicable and shameless existence in your heart?" Tadish smiled faintly. "Aren't you?" Recalling the things he did to her, Song Qing-shu's breathing became stifled. He didn't have the confidence to refute her and could only fiercely pull her into his embrace. "With you, the former #1 beauty of the pugilistic world, here, why would I need any other woman to serve me in bed? Don't tell me Goodbye and Wan Yin-ping don't want me?" Tadish teasingly looked at him. Song Qing-shu didn't expect himself to fall into a trap. Embarrassed, he said, "They have important matters to attend to. They aren't free. So you came to find me, the former #1 beauty of the pugilistic world?" Tadish purposely emphasized the word former. Song Qing-shu hurriedly said, "What former #1 beauty of the pugilistic world? Is that so? How does it compare to Goodbye?" Tadish's eyes revealed a flirtatious expression, illuminated by the candlelight. "She isn't a person of the pugilistic world," Song Qing-shu replied. Tadish was slightly startled. "You reacted rather quickly." Even though the other party didn't give a clear answer, her expression clearly showed that she enjoyed it enough. She wasn't foolish enough to ask the other party how she compared to Zhou Zhuo. After all, she was no longer an insensible little girl. By the way, is there any news of Xiao Zhao? Song Qingshu recalled that her return to the Central Plains this time was to utilize the power of the Jin to help the Persian Ming dynasty to disperse the pressure. Now that Tadish had become the Jin emperor, even though it was fake, she would definitely try her best to find news of her daughter. The situation over at the Persian side isn't looking good. Previously, they relied on the endless mountains and countless bunkers to block the Mongolian cavalry. But this time, the Mongolians have mobilized all their forces, and with irresistible force, they have already broken through the defenses of the outer bunkers. I believe the Persians can at most hold out for another year or two. Tadish looked worried. Right now, the Jin can't even fend for themselves. They really can't lend a helping hand. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Chapter 1494. Female Voluptuous? Song Qingshu's eyes flickered. I like the term you used. Tashtish's face blushed. Her eyes revealed a romantic charm that left Song Qingshu in a daze. He thought to himself, she is indeed a demoness capable of bringing calamity to a country and its people. No wonder the people of the Ming dynasty were infatuated with her, and even caused the bright emissary of the right, Fan Yao, to fall into a demonic barrier. Clearing her throat, Tashtish snorted and said, "Don't try to talk about something else. The reason why I agreed to follow you is to borrow your strength to help Xiao Zhao. If you cannot dispatch your troops as soon as possible, I will secretly leave you. You've been poisoned by me. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, I will chase you back," Song Qingshu said tyrannically. But seeing Tashtish's unfriendly expression, he hastily changed his words. After all, using poison to control someone wasn't a long-term solution. It was better to gain her loyalty first. Don't worry. After this crisis is dealt with and the Jin Kingdom is united, I will dispatch my troops to Mongolia and share some of the pressure on Xiao Zhao's side. Song Qingshu's heart was shrouded by a layer of haze. Actually, he had been planning to borrow the Persian Ming dynasty to exhaust Mongolia's strength and buy time for the Central Plains. Facing the Mongolian army so early while the Central Plains had yet to be stabilized was not a wise move. But he couldn't tell Tashtish about this. "I thank you on behalf of Xiao Zhao." Tashtish bowed gracefully. Song Qingshu hastily supported her. "We are family. There is no need for this. Besides, I can assure you that even if we take 10,000 steps back, I can at least ensure Xiao Zhao's safety." Hearing the words family, Tashtish's expression turned peculiar. At this moment, it was as though she was discussing her daughter with her husband, Han Qinya. For a moment, she didn't notice the hidden meaning in his words. "It is getting late, and you have to hurry on with your journey tomorrow. I shall not disturb your rest." There were only the two of them in the spacious palace hall, a lone man and a lone woman. The candlelight seemed to have added a layer of ambiguity. Tashtish suddenly felt as though she had returned to her teenage years. Song Qingshu grabbed her hand and said with a faint smile, "Are you going to leave me here alone?" Tashkiss's face grew rosier and rosier. She truly lived up to her reputation as the Lady of Peach Blossom, the most beautiful woman in Daxing Prefecture. "If you need me, I can call Emissary Huiwe back to serve you. Or perhaps I can find a few of Wanyan Shui's concubines. They have always been waiting for the Emperor's blessing." Song Qingshu pulled her into his arms. "You should know that I don't want them." Being embraced by him, Tashkiss's mind couldn't help but recall the time when they went to Chongyang Palace together. Along the way, the charming and gentle scene, her body couldn't help but soften. "Goodbye, and Ping Air will be back soon." Song Qingshu hugged her on his thighs and felt the amazing elasticity of her body. He took a deep breath and smelled the faint fragrance on her body. He couldn't help but feel intoxicated. "Don't worry, they have a lot of things to deal with. They won't be back for a while." Tadish's heart was beating wildly. She had always believed that she loved her deceased husband, and not this man in front of her. Yet for some unknown reason, this young man was able to ignite the flames in her body to the greatest degree. This was something that even her beloved husband couldn't compare to. Feeling her tender and soft body melting, Song Qing-shu carried her and said ruefully, "The princes and grandsons of Daxing Prefecture address you as the Lady of Peach Blossom. I feel that another nickname suits you better." "What nickname?" Toshkiss's body exuded a languid charm. Her usually cold voice had a hint of sweetness. "Lady Mian," Song Qing-shu said with a smile. "What do you mean?" Toshkiss couldn't react for a moment. Song Qing-shu gently pinched her. "Because your body is softer than cotton. But other people can only look at you and can't touch you. So they only know your appearance as the Lady of Peach Blossom. They don't know your true identity." Toshkiss was instantly embarrassed. She stretched out her fist and punched his chest. "You, how can you be so indecent?" Song Qing-shu said with a smile. "It's rare for a lady to have such a girlish attitude. Don't you realize that those who are with me look younger?" Toshkiss snorted. She turned her face away and decided to ignore him. Song Qing-shu didn't mind. He carried her to the dragon bed and placed her on it. He moved closer to her ear and said, "Didn't you just submit to me? Come now." Toshkiss's heart skipped a beat. She instantly understood what he meant. She glared at him in anger. "Back then, even my husband didn't humiliate me like this." Song Qing-shu shrugged. "That's because he doesn't know how to enjoy himself. Actually, when we were together, I noticed that even though you look mature and beautiful, you're like a little girl in the bedroom. I can only say that for Han Xinyet to have such a femme fatale at home is truly a reckless waste of God's gift. Don't talk about him." Hearing this man talk about her husband, Toshkiss couldn't help but feel angry. Even so, she had to admit that what he said was reasonable. Back then, her husband had injured his lungs in the icy azure lake of Brightness Summit. Since then, he had been coughing incessantly. He had to take medicine to recuperate for many years. "I was being unkind." Song Qing-shu didn't get angry at her attitude. Instead, he apologized. Toshkiss was surprised. She didn't expect his tone to be so sincere. She couldn't continue to blame him. "All right, let's not talk about him. Let's get back to our matter. Didn't you say you want to submit?" Song Qing-shu's next sentence was like a sprout. Toshkiss unhappily rolled her eyes at him. She wanted to reject him, but unexpectedly, she swallowed her words. Instead, her body involuntarily leaned down. "That's more like it." Observing the exaggerated and graceful curves of her waist and buttocks, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but slap her perky buttocks. This caused Toshkiss to turn around and glare at him. However, her eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. Truly a peerless benefactor. Song Qing-shu swallowed his saliva and climbed up. That night, even though Gubai and Wan Yinping wanted to return to see their lover, the implications of Pucha Ahu's rebellion were too great. They couldn't separate themselves. That night, they interrogated the key figures of the Pucha family, eliminating those who participated in the plot to force the abdication and those who were completely innocent. The entire Daxing Prefecture's officials were shrouded in an atmosphere of anxiety. They were afraid that they would be implicated in the rebellion. No one could sleep well, except for a certain heartless person in the imperial palace. The next day, when Gubai and Wan Yinping came to send Song Qing-shu off, they formed a stark contrast. Even though the two ladies were beautiful, after staying up for an entire night, they couldn't help but look exhausted, with dark circles under their eyes. Only Song Qing-shu looked refreshed and energetic. "It must have been hard on you guys last night," Song Qing-shu said somewhat apologetically. Even with his thick skin, he couldn't help but despise himself a little. Letting the women do all the work while he enjoyed all the warmth in the imperial palace was really a little unkind. However, when he thought about it again, being able to make so many intelligent and beautiful women work for him was also an ability that he could be proud of. Aren't those male lions only responsible for eating, fighting, and mating? The specific work is done by the lionesses. As Song Qing-shu thought of this, his heart calmed down. With Gubai and Wan Yinping's current status, it was naturally inconvenient for them to publicly send him out of the city. The few of them were reluctant to part in the imperial palace for a long time, but in the end, it was time to part. "I will settle Liao's matter as soon as possible and return." Before leaving, Song Qingshu solemnly promised. With the golden token bestowed by the emperor, Song Qingshu slightly changed his attire and walked out of the imperial palace in broad daylight without attracting anyone's attention. On the way to the inn where Zhao Min stayed, Song Qingshu thought to himself, from the conversation with Tadish last night, I'm afraid the Persians won't be able to hold out much longer. I have to let go of my romantic feelings and quickly consolidate the resources of the Central Plains to face the Mongols. When he arrived at the inn, he found Zhao Min slowly eating her breakfast on the second floor. In order to avoid trouble, Zhao Min chose to dress up as a woman. But even so, she still attracted the attention of the surrounding diners. They thought to themselves, where did this elegant gentleman come from? With red lips and white teeth, he's even more charming than a woman. Princess, you're always so dazzling no matter where you are. Song Qingshu walked over and said with a smile, Go away. Don't let the smell of makeup on your clothes affect my appetite. Who knew that when Zhao Min saw him, her expression would be extremely cold and her tone would be as if she was talking to a stranger. Smell of makeup? Song Qingshu lifted his sleeve and sniffed it before answering subconsciously. I even took a bath and changed my clothes. As soon as he said this, he knew that he had fallen into a trap. Looking at Zhao Min's ice-cold expression, he couldn't help but exclaim, Wow, you are deliberately trying to trick me. Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him. Do I still need to trick you? Some people here call you the cheap wife of the first beauty of the Jin Kingdom. With your character, when you come back, won't you find her for a night? Song Qingshu hurriedly said, Last night, nothing happened between me and goodbye, because the one who accompanied him last night was Tadish. Of course, he was not stupid enough to say the latter part. Seeing that Zhao Min didn't seem to believe him at all, he hurriedly swore, If anything happened between me and goodbye yesterday, let me. For a moment, he was at a loss for words, not knowing what kind of oath he should make. Let you what? You have nothing to say, right? Zhao Min said sarcastically. Song Qingshu suddenly had an idea. Let me never marry you in this life. Zhao Min was startled, and her cheeks that were whiter than jade instantly turned red. She picked up the fan in her hand and smashed it into his chest. You bastard! Why did you drag me into this? You should believe me now, right? Song Qingshu chuckled and moved closer. Although Zhao Min was angry in her heart, she really believed his oath. However, she refused to admit defeat. I can't be bothered with you. Now that you have come to find me, does it mean that we can set off for Shangjing? Chapter 1495. You just arrived yesterday and left early this morning. You haven't had time to greet your cheap little wife. Aren't you in a hurry? Zhao Min looked worried for him, but in fact, her eyebrows were full of smiles. Song Qingshu was speechless. What do you mean by cheap little wife? Song Bai and I now know each other well. It can be said that we are in love with each other and treat each other with respect. Oh, you are in love with someone else's wife. Zhao Min made a surprised expression, and the sarcasm was vivid on the paper. Song Qingshu's old face turned red. I'm too lazy to talk to you. I'm going to eat breakfast first. He knew that it was not a wise choice to quarrel with Zhao Min, so he hurriedly bowed his head and ate. Zhao Min wanted to continue taunting him, but she realized that she didn't have a chance to say anything. She had no choice but to let him do as he pleased, especially when she saw him choking on his food. She couldn't help but burst into laughter. Look at you. You are in a hurry. Drink some water and calm down. Zhao Min chuckled and handed the teacup over. Seeing the faint lipstick mark on the teacup, Song Qingshu was stunned. Zhao Min also realized that she had accidentally handed over the teacup. She was so shy that she hurriedly reached out to take it back, but Song Qingshu reacted quickly. He directly took it in his hand and pulled it back. He said with a smile, No. Zhao Min tried to grab it several times, but failed. Moreover, he drank all the water in the teacup in his leisure time. She couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Well, it seems that even the water in the cup that your highness has drunk has become sweeter. Song Qingshu deliberately pretended to be intoxicated. I'm too lazy to talk to you. Zhao Min didn't expect that it would be her turn to say this so soon. She felt a little embarrassed and directly got up to leave. Song Qingshu smiled and continued to grab a few snacks in his hand. He chased after her. You haven't finished eating yet. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Before Zhao Min could answer, she was stopped by the waiter. Hey, you haven't paid yet. Zhao Min was still in a fit of anger. She turned her head and gestured for Song Qingshu to give her the money. Song Qingshu reached into his pocket and his expression suddenly changed. Oh no, I changed my clothes. I don't have any money on me. This time, the waiter didn't hold back. Look at the two princesses' attire. How come you want to dine and dash? Song Qingshu explained with a bitter smile. We were just quarreling and forgot to pay the bill. Although he was highly skilled in martial arts and had a high status, he still maintained the kind heart of an ordinary person from his previous life. He was patient enough with an ordinary waiter. Quarrel? Unexpectedly, the waiter suddenly raised his voice. I don't know how many people like you who want to dine and dash by quarreling. Hurry up and pay. I don't want to leave if you don't pay. The surrounding people also began to point at them. How could Zhao Min stand it? She directly took out a silver ingot and threw it over. Then, she left with a cold face. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and hurriedly chased after her. The waiter took the silver ingot but still couldn't help but complain. Two big men whispering to each other. Isn't it disgusting? No wonder you are so soft and tender. It turns out that you are a rabbit. Although his voice was low, Song Qingshu and Zhao Min were both martial arts people. Naturally, they heard it clearly with their sharp ears and eyes. Zhao Min stumbled and almost fell. She turned around angrily. Song Qingshu hurriedly pulled her away so that the waiter wouldn't suffer a big loss. Why are you pulling me? Until they walked to a quiet place. Zhao Min finally shook off Song Qingshu's hand. That waiter has a bad mouth. I have to teach him a lesson. Song Qingshu said with a smile, You are a dignified commandery princess. You should be magnanimous. Don't argue with this kind of person. Moreover, he didn't lie. You're really soft and tender. We did have some whispering to each other. Zhao Min's anger had almost dissipated. When she heard the last sentence, she couldn't help but frown. Who is whispering to each other? Seeing that she was showing signs of anger again, Song Qingshu hurriedly changed the topic. Commandery Princess, I have a question to ask you. Seeing that she suddenly showed signs of anger, Song Qingshu hurriedly changed the topic. Commandery Princess, I have a question to ask you. Seeing that he suddenly looked serious, Zhao Min's attention was indeed attracted. What? Her tone showed that she still had some lingering anger. How do you think I can completely turn the power into my own? Song Qingshu asked. Song Qingshu nodded. This was indeed a headache for him. He could use the identity of Tranquil to exercise power. But once it was revealed that he was Song Qingshu, all the power he had before would suddenly collapse. This made him feel very insecure. Although the art of disguise was amazing, it also had a natural flaw. It was destined that one's true identity could not be revealed. This was the case in the Jin Kingdom and the former Qin Kingdom. His biggest problem was that he could not use the power of the two countries as Song Qingshu. Unexpectedly, Zhao Min played it down and said, What's so difficult about it? Isn't it easy to build a new army? Build a new army? Song Qingshu was stunned. He seemed to have grasped her thoughts, but at the same time, it seemed that he did not. Yes, build a new army, from the commander-in-chief to the middle-level officers to the bottom-level soldiers. Then give them supreme glory and better pay. After a few years of war, this army will completely become your personal army. Even if your identity is exposed in the future, these soldiers will definitely follow your orders more easily than the original army of the Jin Kingdom. Now that we are in a world of war, there are at least 1,000 excuses to build a new army. Moreover, in troubled times, only those who have control over an army will have enough confidence. Zhao Min paused for a moment and continued, Of course, if you have the ability to control the financial system of the Jin Kingdom, you'll get twice the result with half the effort. In this chaotic world, as long as you have money and an army, you'll have everything. Song Qingshu excitedly held her in his arms and said, Min Min, you are really the reincarnation of Zhang Liang. Listening to your words, I feel enlightened. Xiaomin did not expect him to suddenly hug her like this. She blushed and tried to push him away. Let go of me. Haha, I can't control myself. Sorry. Song Qingshu let go of her with an excited smile on his face. Seeing him so happy, Xiaomin could not help but smile. However, she suddenly thought of what if Song Qingshu became the enemy of Mongolia in the future. Her heart was suddenly covered with a layer of haze. I am also helping Mongolia to weaken the Jin kingdom. It's not a problem. Zhao Min secretly comforted herself. With her intelligence, how could she not see something? However, when she thought of that, she hurriedly stopped thinking about it. After a few days, the two of them had their own thoughts and finally arrived at Shanjing. Looking at the majestic city walls, Song Qingshu could not help but sigh. The terrain here is indeed dangerous, easy to defend and difficult to attack. No wonder Northern Han was able to defend against the later Zhou and Northern Song's several northern expeditions. With such a strong city, Liao will not have to worry about self-preservation in these troubled times. Zhao Min's tone had a hint of mockery. Liao has never been good at defending cities. Their custom has always been to hold alms bowls during the 4 seasons. The emperor would lead the civil and military officials and the army to hunt everywhere. When they came to places with abundant water and grass, they would hold alms bowls. That is the actual capital. Now that the Jin kingdom has destroyed their country, they no longer have the conditions to hunt. They can only hide in this strong city. Presumably, the Khitans with the slightest bit of courage would not be proud of this strong city. Instead, they would feel that it is a kind of humiliation. That is true. Song Qingshu nodded in agreement. It is getting late. Let's quickly enter the city and find a place to stay. Zhao Min took the lead and walked in the direction of the city gates. Do you think that when we go to the inn later, there will be only one room left? Song Qingshu moved closer with a drooling face. That is not possible. Zhao Min coldly snorted. Song Qingshu smiled and said, Why not? You should know that my luck has always been very good. You wish. Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him, a hint of red flashing across her cheeks. Who told you that we will stay in an inn? If not an inn, where will we stay? A thought suddenly appeared in Song Qingshu's mind. Could it be that in order to hide her identity, she wanted to hide in a brothel? So should he agree or pretend to refuse? I bought a leisure residence here before. When the time comes, we will stay there, Zhao Min said nonchalantly. Song Qingshu was startled, but he quickly reacted. What leisure residence? It was clearly a secret stronghold that she had secretly set up. You really know how to be a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows. With your personality, you must have a similar residence in Daxing Prefecture. Then why didn't you stay there previously in Daxing Prefecture? Why did you stay in an inn? If I brought you there, would the laundry brothel confiscate your house? Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him as if he had asked a retarded question. Song Qingshu was speechless. Moreover, who told you that I was staying in an inn at that time? Zhao Min said with a smile that was not a smile. Song Qingshu was puzzled. But the next morning, I was only eating breakfast there. Zhao Min snorted. You were thinking of all the pleasures of the world in the land of gentleness. Why would I foolishly wait in an inn alone? Of course, I went to my own residence to rest. Then what if I came back and couldn't find you? Song Qingshu said gloomily. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. So you waited for me the whole night. Zhao Min's eyes flickered. She snorted. Don't flatter yourself. Who waited for you the whole night? Even if I used my toes to think, I would know that you wouldn't come back from the land of gentleness. Who said that? I clearly came back to look for you at night, but I couldn't find you, Song Qingshu said quickly. He stared at her eyes as he spoke. Impossible, I was always. Halfway through her sentence, Zhao Min immediately realized that she had fallen into a trap. She blushed and glared at him. She felt that she couldn't face him, so she quickly turned around and left. Song Qingshu's eyes revealed a look of pleasant surprise. He hurriedly chased after her. Unfortunately, the other side's face was as cold as frost. She simply ignored him. Are your dog eyes blind? Can't you see where you're going? Just as the two people were entangled, suddenly a shrill sound pierced through the air. Song Qingshu's complexion changed. He pulled Zhao Min to the side and dodged. It turned out to be a long black whip. Because it struck empty air, it produced a sonic boom. Song Qingshu was furious. If an ordinary person couldn't dodge in time and was struck by this whip, a light injury would be lacerated. A heavy injury would be disfigurement and blindness. It was really too vicious. But before he had the time to react, the knight who struck the whip rushed to scold. "Bold, unruly commoner, you dare to collide with Princess Cheng An's imperial carriage." Chapter 1496. Princess Chang'an. Hearing this name, Song Qingshu's anger suddenly disappeared without a trace. Looking behind him, he saw a group of cavalrymen escorting a luxurious carriage. Behind them were maids and servants, and further behind them was a group of armored soldiers. It was easy to see that each one of them was an astute and valiant soldier. Song Qingshu tried his best to look into the carriage, but no matter how skilled he was, he couldn't see through walls. He couldn't see if it was Yelu Nancian inside. "Smelly brat, what are you looking at? Do you believe I won't gouge out your eyes?" The cavalryman saw that Song Qingshu wasn't paying attention to him and was instead sneaking sneaky glances at the carriage. He couldn't help but be enraged. Song Qingshu was furious, but at this moment, a light voice came from the carriage. "Forget it. Let's go." Hearing this, Song Qingshu was overjoyed. He could tell that it was indeed Yelu Nanshan's voice. However, what made him feel strange was that the previous Yelu Nanshan's voice was soft and gentle, with an otherworldly temperament. Now, although her voice was still pleasant to the ear, it lacked the usual liveliness, with a trace of waning interest and melancholy. Unfortunately, after saying that one sentence, Yelu Nancian didn't speak again. Moreover, she didn't seem to have any intention of showing herself. Not even the slightest bit of the curtain was pulled up. Watching as the carriages entered the city, Song Qingshu was in a daze. Suddenly, Zhao Min came up to his side, rejoicing in his misfortune. The Grand Prince of Qi, one of the best martial artists in the world, was actually bullied by a lowly soldier. "If a dog bites you, are you going to bite it back?" Song Qingshu nonchalantly asked. "Although I won't bite it back, at least I'll give it a good beating." Zhao Min harumphed, flicking a pebble at the cavalryman's horse's leg. Startled, the horse reared up and the cavalryman, caught off guard, fell to the ground, his mouth full of blood. "Ha ha!" Zhao Min let out a tinkling laugh. "Now I feel better." Repaying enmity with honesty, the princess is really a heroine. Song Qingshu couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. "I'm still mad at you. Didn't you already talk to me? Who told you that you won't be angry if you speak?" The two of them bickered all the way into the city, and before they knew it, they arrived at Zhao Min's private residence. He saw that the rocks in the garden were simple and unadorned. The stream was clear. There were not many rooms in the garden, but they were all very exquisite. Song Qingshu could not help but sigh. There is such an elegant place in the north. Junju is really an elegant person. Actually, this place is only so. Zhao Min acted as if she was just narrating an ordinary thing. When Song Qingshu thought about how she could build a green willow heights in the desert, he felt that this manor in front of him was not a big deal. Zhao Min led Song Qingshu to settle down in the garden, and then she took him to the study, where a servant had already served tea. The tea was the top-grade Longjing tea from Jiangnan. Song Qingshu could not help but sigh that these top nobles really knew how to enjoy themselves. Zhao Min might not even come here once a year, but all the things prepared were of the best quality. How extravagant! As for the servants, Song Qingshu did not treat them as ordinary servants. To be chosen as the servants of the secret stronghold in Shangjing, they must be the top secret agents of Mongolia. Song Qingshu quietly felt the rhythm of these people's breathing, and sure enough, their martial arts were not weak. After dismissing the servants, Zhao Min then said, "Other than knowing that Murong Jingyue is in Shangjing, do you have any other information?" Song Qingshu knew that this was what she was most concerned about, and for a moment, he put away his cynical expression. "According to the information I received, he should be disguised as a Khitan official, but I don't know who he is. A great recluse hides in the imperial court. No wonder I couldn't find any news about him, even after I used all the information network in the Riyang mansion. So he's hiding in Liao, Zhao Min said indignantly. She had previously found 3 possible places, but unfortunately, they were all proved to be fake. Now that she thought about it, he was hiding in the imperial court of Khitan, the ally of Mongolia. It really was the saying, "It's dark under the lamp." But although Khitan has declined, there are at least 800 to 1,000 officials in Shangjing. It's easier said than done to find Murong Jingwei. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. As long as we know he is here, we will be able to find him, Zhao Min said confidently. Over the past year, she had been tortured by Murong Jingyue's poison and had been searching for his whereabouts. She had long been suppressing a ball of evil fire in her heart. Next, Zhao Min gathered the people in charge here and prepared all kinds of information about Shangjing. As she analyzed them, she asked them about the confidence of some of the officials and nobles in Shangjing. On the other hand, Song Qingshu was a little idle at the side. "I'll go outside to investigate and see if I can find anything," Song Qingshu couldn't help but say. Zhao Min frowned. She didn't think that Song Qingshu would be able to find anything in such a short time. However, seeing that he wouldn't be of much help here, and this was, after all, a secret Mongolian intelligence base, it would be inconvenient for him to stay here. Thus, she agreed. Song Qingshu came out of the garden and wandered around Shangjing for a while. Other than understanding the local customs and practices, he really didn't find anything. "Have you guys heard that Princess Cheng is going to marry the crown prince of Western Xia soon?" As he passed by a tavern, the conversation of a few Khitan people instantly attracted Song Qingshu's attention. Princess Cheng is skilled in martial arts and is as beautiful as a fairy. "That Western Xia brat is really lucky," one of them said indignantly. Another Khitan person sighed. "Our great Liao is no longer what it used to be. I can't believe we have to ask Western Xia, a former vassal state. Western Xia is a fence-sitter. They used to be submissive to our great Liao, but when the Jin kingdom came, they immediately switched sides. Wouldn't we suffer a double loss by marrying Princess Cheng into such a treacherous and two-faced country? That Western Xia guy married Princess Cheng. If he doesn't fulfill his promise, I'll fight my way to Lingzhou City, even if I have to risk my life. TCH, if you have the ability to do that, why don't you ask the emperor to grant the princess to you?" As he listened to their discussion, Song Qingshu recalled Yelu Nanshan's determination when she left. He thought about the despair in her voice at the city gate just now. For a moment, his heart was in turmoil, and he couldn't hold it in any longer. He asked for directions to the Wei Palace and hurried there. The Wei Palace occupied a large mansion in the Shangjing city, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Yelu Yisin's influence in Liao was evident. Although the Wei Palace was heavily guarded, with Song Qingshu's current level of martial arts, he could come and go as he pleased in the imperial palace. It was not difficult for him to sneak into the mansion under the cover of the night. Over the years, Song Qingshu had become an expert in the layout of buildings. He could roughly guess the location of the wife's residence after a quick glance. He searched along the way and finally found Yelu Nanshan's room. Why are there guards at the door? Song Qingshu couldn't help but be surprised when he saw the guards at the door. Normally, the inner and outer residences of an official's mansion were separated. The inner residence was where the women lived, and the guards were not allowed to enter. Could it be that something happened? Song Qingshu couldn't bear it any longer. He pushed his qin gong to the extreme and directly flew into the courtyard from midair. These imperial guards didn't expect that someone could fly over their heads without making a sound. They didn't even know what happened. After entering the courtyard, he saw Yelu Nanshan sitting on the window in a daze, staring at the bright moon in the sky. The cold night wind blew her clothes, making her look as if she would jump down at any time. Song Qingshu panicked and hurriedly flew over and threw her into the room through the window. Yelu Nanshan was also shocked by the sudden attack. She instinctively waved her hand and began to fight back. Her martial arts were among the best among the younger generation in Liao. Unless she encountered some famous masters in Jianghu, she wouldn't have to worry about protecting herself. Unfortunately, as soon as she raised her hand, she found herself being restrained by the opponent. Just as she was about to cry for help, she suddenly recognized the opponent and was startled. Qing Shu. Song Qing Shu hurriedly said, "Even if you can't think straight, don't jump off a building. I'm here. I won't let you marry the Western Xia Crown Prince." Yilu Nanxian had a strange look on her face. "You think I want to jump off a building? Isn't that so?" Song Qing Shu also gradually realized that he might have made a mistake. "Why would I want to jump off a building?" Yilu Nanxian pushed him away and said calmly, You were forced to marry the Western Xia Crown Prince, and you couldn't resist, so you couldn't think straight." Song Qing Shu's voice became less and less confident. Yilu Nanxian looked at him and answered, "I did it willingly." Song Qing Shu immediately swallowed back the words he was about to say. He quickly reacted and said angrily, "No, I can't let you marry another man. You're really overbearing." Yilu Nanxian frowned. "I still haven't settled the score with you for bullying me last time, and you're still trying to arrange things for me." Song Qing Shu held his breath, thinking of what happened last time in Yangzhou. He couldn't help but awkwardly say, "I'm sorry about what happened last time, but it was really an accident." Yilu Nancy interrupted him. "It doesn't matter if it was an accident or on purpose. It's already happened anyway. There's no point in talking about it." "That's true." Song Qing Shu smiled bitterly. "Sister Nanxian, don't worry. I'll take responsibility." Yilu Nanxian blushed and spat. "Who wants you to take responsibility?" That night, Song Qing Shu had just opened his mouth when Yilu Nanxian interrupted him. "We women of the prairie don't have as many rules as you Han women. What happened that night is what happened. I don't need you to take responsibility. Don't think that I'll treat you like a Han woman. I'll treat myself as your woman." "Of course not," Song Qing Shu said seriously. He was a person from the future. How could he think that just because two people had sex, they must be together? In the future, one-night stands and dating were not too common. "All right, you can go now." Yilu Nanxian stood by the window. The moonlight shone on her face like a layer of tranquil light. "After all, I'm about to become the Western Xia Crown Prince's wife. I can't let others gossip about me." Seeing her calm eyes, Song Qing Shu couldn't help but become angry. "Have you seen that Western Xia Crown Prince?" "No." Yilu Nanxian shook her head. "You haven't even seen him. Why must you marry him?" Song Qing Shu said angrily. Chapter 1497. When Song Qing Shu came out of King Wei's mansion, he felt lost. He knew that he and Yilu Nanxian didn't have a solemn pledge of undying love, nor were they lovers. He had no reason to ask her to do this and that, but when he thought that she was about to become someone else's wife, he still felt suffocated, especially her attitude. She looked at him as if he was an ordinary friend. No, even less than an ordinary friend. This made him feel even more hurt. But he also knew that she had her own thoughts and feelings. He couldn't force her. Just like that, he returned to Zhao Min's courtyard in a daze. Seeing him return, Zhao Min casually asked, "Did you find any clues?" "No." Song Qing Shu shook his head, obviously a little dispirited. Zhao Min looked at him strangely, but she was too excited to notice his abnormality. "Come here quickly. I have analyzed some clues here." "Oh." Song Qing Shu finally regained his spirit. It should be known that Murong Jingwe was not only related to the poison in Zhao Min's body, but also the murderer that Icy Snow had been searching for. As long as he was not eliminated, Icy Snow would be in danger. Murong Jingwe was hiding in the dark, like a venomous snake, waiting for an opportunity to strike. It would be hard to feel at ease if he was not eliminated. Zhao Min unrolled a roll of paper. It was densely packed with names. She pointed at the names and said, "This is the list of all the important officials in the Khitan Imperial Court." Looking at the neatly arranged names, not only the names, but also the official positions and some brief comments, Song Qing Shu couldn't help but praise, "You are really efficient. Of course I will succeed in every endeavor." Zhao Min smiled proudly. "Let me briefly explain to you, so that you won't be confused. Okay, although Song Qingshu had heard about Liao's imperial court in the Jin kingdom, he only knew a few famous people. As for the rest of the civil and military officials, he was completely ignorant. There's no need to introduce the Emperor of Liao, Yalu Hongji. I believe that Murong Jingwe doesn't have the ability to impersonate him. Zhao Ming gave a simple evaluation, and Song Qingshu inwardly nodded. He was able to substitute for Murong Jingwe because he had the right time, place, and people. He didn't think that Murong Jingwe would be able to do the same. Zhao Min continued. Although Liao has declined, there are still many concubines in the harem. However, there are only 3 important people. Empress Xiao Guanyin, consort Wen Xiao Zhonghui, and consort Yuan Xiao Yingying. Song Qingshu thought to himself, Su Quan also mentioned Liao. I wonder where she is now. Empress Xiao Guanyin is a national beauty and is good at the 4 arts. She is the daughter of Prime Minister Xiao Pidi of the Northern Residence. She is now the most favored. Zhao Min pointed to a name and introduced. Song Qingshu felt that the name Xiao Guanyin sounded familiar. He suddenly remembered that she was the empress who died in an unjust case in history. He didn't know if she would still meet that tragic end in this world. Consort Wen Xiao Zhonghui is the cousin of Empress Xiao Guanyin. She is also the daughter of the imperial uncle's 5th branch. She is charming and lively, and has always been favored by the emperor. Zhao Min continued. Xiao Zhonghui? Song Qingshu frowned. This name felt very familiar. It seemed to be the name of a female protagonist in a certain book. He didn't know if it was the same person. Consort Yuan Xiao Yingying is the younger sister of the Southern Courtyard's Privy Commissioner Xiao Fengxian. Her maiden family is strong. In addition to her extraordinary beauty, she is also favored by the emperor. Zhao Min commented. Song Qingshu had an impression of the name Xiao Fengxian. Firstly, he was an important official of Liao. Secondly, it was easy to associate him with Lu Fengxian of the 3 kingdoms. Therefore, he had a deep impression of him. According to the intelligence of the Huani Yard, this person appeared to be a loyal and filial son, but in reality, he was an ambitious person. The princes are still young. Let's not talk about them. However, the 2 princesses are already married. The princess of Zhao's son-in-law is Xiao Huandu, the current Payin Langjun. Seeing Song Qingshu's confusion, Zhao Min explained, the Payin Langjun is similar to his secretary. He stays by the emperor's side to help with some paperwork. Seeing that Song Qingshu understood, Zhao Min continued. The princess of Wei's son-in-law is Commandant Xiao Shimao. This person is my main target of observation. I suspect that he is very likely to be Murong Jingwe. Why? Song Qingshu asked curiously. Out of so many officials, why did Zhao Min pick him? Because this Xiao Xiaomao was previously unknown. In the end, when the emperor was looking for a husband for the princess of Wei, he suddenly rose to prominence, defeated all the strong competitors, and became the princess' son-in-law. Zhao Min answered. Song Qingshu expressed his agreement. Just like in the novels he read in his previous life, the main characters were often unknown at the beginning. In the end, they suddenly appeared out of nowhere, often because they had been transmigrated. Zhao Min suddenly examined him with a strange expression. Speaking of which, although the previous Song Qingshu was considered one of the best of a younger generation in the pugilistic world, he was far from the top. In the end, after the lion slaughtering meet, you soared to the skies. Don't tell me you're also an imposter? Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. This Zhao Min was indeed smart. She could guess most accurately with just a casual guess. However, he did not want his biggest secret to be revealed. He quickly snorted and said, after the crushing defeat at the lion slaughtering meet, I was enlightened. Naturally, I can't look at people the same way I did in the past. That's true. Zhao Min smiled faintly. She had only said it casually and did not take it to heart. Other than Xiao Shimao, there's another very suspicious person. That is the deputy commandant of the Front Palace Department, Xiao Shi, also known as Xiao Shi Lang. Note, Xiao Shi Lang was based on Xiao Shisan, the deputy commandant of the Front Palace Department in the history of Liao. Because of the influence of the Northern Song dynasty, whether it was Liao or the Jin Kingdom, there were many traces of the Northern Song dynasty in their official systems. For example, the Front Palace Department was one of them. Song Qingshu was drinking water. When he heard Xiao Shi Lang's name, he almost spat it out. Xiaomin did not know why he had such a big reaction. She explained, Xiao Shi Lang's martial arts are very strong, but no one knows his background. He is really too mysterious. Song Qingshu thought that Xiao Shi Lang was not someone from the Golden Book world. It was very likely that he was Murong Jingwei in disguise. However, on second thought, Shui Yiren and Shin Bijuan had already come out. Adding Xiao Shi Lang to the mix seemed to make sense. For a moment, he could not help but feel a little conflicted. Zhao Min did not know that his mind was already rumbling with thunder. She continued to explain the situation of the Khitan court to him. The highest authority in Liao is the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs. The Northern Bureau of Military Affairs, Yalu Rin Xian, has been suppressing rebellions in the Northwest for a long time. As a result, the power of the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs has fallen into the hands of the second-in-command, the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs, Yalu Yisan. Right? He is the father of the Princess of Cheng and Yalu Nanxian. Song Qingshu nodded. He already knew this. Zhao Min continued. The third-in-command is the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs, Xiao Yuli. His niece is married to Yalu Yisan's son. The fourth-in-command is the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs, Xiao Weixin. He has always been upright and outspoken. He does not collude with Yalu Yisan. Unfortunately, he is already old and his role is limited. The Northern Bureau of Military Affairs, Zhang Xiaojia, was also promoted by Yalu Yisan. It can be said that the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs is now completely under Yalu Yisan's control. Song Qingshu did not understand. Since Yalu Yisan is so powerful, why would he let his own daughter marry him? Isn't it easy to find a princess in Shangjing? I don't quite understand this either. Zhao Min shook her head. Presumably, he wants to use this opportunity to build a relationship with Western Xia. With this outer league, he can consolidate his power. Song Qingshu thought about it and could only think of this explanation. Last time in Yangzhou, Yalu Yisan did not hesitate to use Yalu Nanshan's life to buy time for him to escape. It could be seen that he was cold-blooded and had no feelings for his daughter. All he thought about was how to maximize his daughter's usefulness. The Southern Bureau of Military Affairs is Xiao Fengxian's territory. His sister is the emperor's concubine, and his brother is the commander of the military department, Xiao Sixian. Their true strength is not below Yalu Yisan's. Zhao Min commented. Song Qingshu previously learned from the intelligence of the Jin Kingdom that there were three most important military forces in Liao Shangjing. The first was the Front Palace Department, which was similar to the Imperial Army of the Han Dynasty and guarded the Imperial Palace. The second was the Palace Deployment Department, which was in charge of the Palace Division and was the most elite force directly loyal to the Emperor. The third was the commander of the Military Department, which was the local garrison of Shangjing and was responsible for the defense of Shangjing. Now that Xiao Fengxian and his brother were in charge of the Southern Bureau of Military Affairs and Shangjing's defense, their strength could not be underestimated. Because in Liao's official system, there was always a north and a south. At first, Song Qingshu thought that the north was the official in charge of the Khitans and the south was the official in charge of the Han. Later, he learned from the intelligence of the Jin Kingdom that this was not the case. The official in charge of the Han was called the Han Bureau of Military Affairs, and so on. It was difficult to ascend to the center of power. Whether it was the Southern Bureau of Military Affairs or the Southern Prime Minister's office, they were still in charge of the Khitans and had nothing to do with the Han. The reason why there was a North and a South Bureau of Military Affairs was that the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs was in charge of military affairs, while the Southern Bureau of Military Affairs was in charge of the ordinary civil affairs. The reason why there was a Northern and Southern Bureau of Military Affairs was because there were many Khitans. When the country was founded, there were 20 tribes, which expanded to 34 in the middle period and even 48 in the later period. The Northern Prime Minister's office was in charge of the military affairs of the 5 departments, 6 departments, Wulon, Nira, Tulu, and so on. The Southern Prime Minister's office was in charge of the military affairs of the Ishur, Chu, Tuju, and Pin. The famous king of the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs and king of the Southern Bureau of Military Affairs were, in fact, another name for the 5 departments and 6 departments. The king of the Northern Bureau of Military Affairs was in charge of the military affairs of the 5 departments, while the king of the Southern Bureau of Military Affairs was in charge of the military affairs of the 6 departments. Because the 5 departments and the 6 departments were the largest Khitan tribes, they had much more power than the leaders of the other tribes. Zhao Min suddenly stood up and said, Liao's intelligence on the court is more or less the same as what you've told me. Let's start with the prince consort, Xiao Shima. Let's see if he's Murong Jingwen in disguise. Puzzled, Song Qingshu asked, why not start with Xiao 11lang? Compared to Xiao Shimao, he felt that there were more suspicious points about Xiao 11lang. Zhao Min waved a secret letter in her hand. I've received news that Xiao Shima didn't return to the prince consort's residence after leaving the imperial palace. Instead, he was sneaking towards the outskirts of the city, which is very suspicious. Since we've bumped into him, we'll start with him. Seems like it's all fate. Let's start with him. Song Qingshu, on the other hand, was secretly shocked. The intelligence network that Zhao Min had planted in Liao was really powerful. There were actually people paying attention to the whereabouts of the emperor's son-in-law. Thank you, book friend, for shining like a diamond. Janny the Moon, Chuanjin Zhao Zhijing, Eating Skewers is the Truth, Blackfin and Whitefin, Dopping 1987, Emo the Biumu, Wang Yisheng, and other book friend support and monthly tickets. Chapter 1498. Song Qingshu and Zhao Min arrived at a small courtyard in the southern part of the city. A person was already waiting for them there. Are you sure that Xiao Xia entered this place? Zhao Min asked calmly. At this moment, Princess Zhao Min's elegance was on full display. The person replied, this subordinate followed him all the way here. It is definitely him. How long has he been in there? Zhao Min asked. About the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. The person replied. Zhao Min waved her hand. You can go back first. Leave this place to us. The person revealed a hesitant expression. Princess, Xiao Xia's martial arts are quite high. You alone. Zhao Min pointed at Song Qingshu. I have him. Song Qingshu cooperated and puffed out his chest, appearing particularly spirited. The person glanced at Song Qingshu. Although he didn't recognize him and looked like a hedonistic young master, he didn't say anything. Instead, he trusted his master's judgment and silently retreated. You're quite strict with your subordinates. Song Qingshu sighed thoughtfully. They only need to strictly follow my orders, Zhao Min replied calmly. Then, she beckoned him to walk into the courtyard. Song Qingshu chased after them and warned, be careful of an ambush. Zhao Min stopped and agreed with his judgment. Bring me in. She had seen Song Qingshu's Qinggong before and knew that with him leading them, no one would be able to find them even if they were in a dragon's lair or a tiger's den. Song Qingshu nodded. Holding her soft waist, they silently snuck into the small courtyard. It wasn't anything new for the two of them to cuddle. They had done more intimate actions before, so the two of them didn't notice anything wrong when they hugged each other. However, as soon as they entered the courtyard, Song Qingshu discovered that he was worrying too much. There wasn't any ambush here. There weren't even any guards. The entire courtyard was completely dark except for a faint light coming from one of the rooms. Song Qingshu flew to the house with Zhao Min, poked a hole in the window, and looked inside. Ah! A woman's coquettish voice suddenly came from inside, scaring Song Qingshu so much that his hand trembled and he almost hit the window. Zhao Min was also shocked. What's that sound? Song Qingshu had a vague guess in his heart, but he still needed to confirm it. He made a shushing gesture to Zhao Min and then looked in through the window. The light inside was dim and yellow, the bed was turned red, and a burly man could be seen doing something indescribable to a woman. The woman's white legs were kicking wildly, and it was obvious that she was also very aroused. That sound just now was involuntary. What happened inside? Noticing that Song Qingshu's expression was getting weirder and weirder with a playful smile on his face, Zhao Min hurriedly asked. Nothing. Song Qingshu didn't know how to explain, but he couldn't help but evaluate in his heart. Although he couldn't see the woman's face, her skin was quite white. Zhao Min couldn't hold back her curiosity and tried to push him away to see for herself, but Song Qingshu didn't move an inch. You better not look. You'll regret it. What are you trying to do? The more Song Qingshu said like this, the more curious Zhao Min became. Seeing that she couldn't push him away, she simply opened a hole in the window and lowered her head to look. Zhao Min cried out in surprise. She instantly shrank back as if she was scalded, and her face was already red with embarrassment. Song Qingshu spread out his hands. I already told you not to look. Who told you not to believe me? Zhao Min was instantly annoyed. She directly punched him. You bastard! You deliberately set a trap for me to pick. You deliberately wanted to see me make a fool of myself. I clearly told you not to look. The smile on Song Qingshu's face suddenly froze. He instantly pressed down on Zhao Min's hand and pushed her to the side of the shadow. Zhao Min was shocked. Her first reaction was that Song Qingshu's qi and blood were in turmoil because of the scene inside. His bestial instincts were aroused, and he wanted to do those dirty things to her. However, she quickly realized that he was not such a person. Sure enough, Song Qingshu moved closer to her ear and whispered, "Be quiet. Someone is coming." At this time, Zhao Min also noticed that someone had walked into the yard. She hurriedly closed her mouth for fear that she would alarm the other party. However, in such a quiet environment, her body was several times more sensitive than usual. She could even clearly feel Song Qingshu's breath on her skin, and her face gradually turned red. In order to divert her attention, she hurriedly looked in the direction of the courtyard gate. She saw a middle-aged man with a pair of malicious eyes walking in. Beside him was a big man with a face full of stubble that was slovenly and unkempt. However, he looked open-minded and at ease. Who the hell is this man? Song Qingshu and Zhao Min had the same suspicion at the same time. They recognized the malicious middle-aged man. It was Yalu Yisin, whom they had been talking about before. In order to avoid being discovered by them, Song Qingshu led Zhao Min to the back of the room, and then let go of Zhao Min's hand. Zhao Min's face was delicate and charming. She rolled her eyes at him with a faint smile. It turns out that the romantic child song uses these means to take advantage of other girls. But Song Qingshu didn't show any embarrassment. Instead, he replied, "We've hugged and kissed. Do I need to hold your hand to take advantage of you?" Hearing this, Zhao Min frowned. Song Qingshu hurriedly pulled her to the window. They went in. In the end, curiosity won out. Zhao Min glared at him and then leaned against the window to watch. The door was kicked open. The two people on the bed were clearly shocked. Xiao Shimu pulled the blanket over the woman while he got up and fastened his belt. Seeing this, Zhao Min spat and hurriedly turned her head away. Which bastard? Xiao Shimu was halfway through cursing when he suddenly recognized Yalu Yisin. He swallowed the rest of his words. Although he was the emperor's son-in-law, Yalu Yisin's power was overwhelming. He didn't dare to offend him. The emperor's son-in-law, sure, is carefree. Yalu Yisin glanced at the woman on the bed and said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, the burly man beside him rushed to the side of the bed. The woman fell on the bed, and the burly man returned to his original position as if he hadn't moved at all. What a fast movement technique! Song Qingshu secretly praised. Although it couldn't compare to his and Dongfang Mushue's, it was still a top-notch movement technique in the pugilistic world. Seeing the woman lying on the bed, Xiao Xiamu was shocked and angry. "Xiao Shilang, what are you doing?" Xiao Shilang. Hearing his words, the two people outside were shocked. Even the shy Zhao Min looked into the room again. So he's Xiao Shilang. Looking at this unkempt, burly man, Song Qingshu nodded inwardly. He had a carefree and uninhibited air, which was quite in line with Xiao Shilang's character. "Don't worry, she's fine. She's just unconscious." Xiao Shilang shrugged. a devilish smile on his lips. What does Prince Wei mean? Although he was wary of Yelu Yisin, Xiao Xiaomu was still angry. He looked coldly at Yelu Yisin. Nothing much. It's just that it's not convenient for her to hear what I'm going to say next. Yelu Yisin paused, then smiled. You know that this is for her own good. Xiao Shimu knew that he was speaking the truth. Often, the more one knew, the easier it was to be silenced. What is Prince Wei trying to say? Xiao Shimu frowned. Yelu Yisin wasn't in a hurry to answer. Instead, he began to talk about a past event. Does Prince Consort know how Prince Lonling, Xiao Honda, died? Xiao Shimu didn't understand what he meant, but still answered. Wasn't it because the princess of Yu passed away, and he fell ill from longing for his wife? Didn't he die soon after? That's just to deceive outsiders. Yelu Yisin sneered. Back then, Prince Lonling had an affair with a palace maid, causing his wife, the princess of Yu, to die of grief and anger. Empress Dowager Xiao was furious and secretly sentenced him to death. Because this concerned the face of the imperial family, it was announced that he died from longing for his wife. Xiao Shimu's expression changed slightly. Why are you telling me this? Yelu Yisin sighed. Some people just don't learn from history. Prince Consort's current situation is so similar to Prince Lanling's. As he spoke, he glanced at the woman on the bed. Prince Consort, don't tell me this woman is the princess? Xiao Shimu snorted. You already know the answer. Yelu Yisin continued. Back then, when Xiao Honda was the prince of Lonling, Empress Dowager Xiao ordered him to die. Now, you're just a commandant of the emperor's son-in-law. Do you think the Empress Dowager will show mercy? Xiao Shimu's expression changed drastically. Are you threatening me? It's not a threat. I'm just analyzing the facts for you. Yelu Yisin smiled faintly. Xiao Shimu said, What do you want me to do? He wasn't stupid. He knew that Yelu Yisin deliberately came here without reporting. He must have taken the opportunity to blackmail him to do something for him. Prince Consort is really a smart person. Yelu Yisin smiled. Prince Consort must have recently heard that the imperial bodyguard Yelu Chala reported that Yelu Qi was trying to support Prince Jin in a rebellion. Song Qingshu was shocked. First, he was surprised that Yelu Qi could hold such an important position at such a young age. Second, he was surprised that he was in a crisis of rebellion. It should be known that for the emperors of all dynasties, rebellion was the most dreaded thing. If the person involved didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Isn't it because there is no evidence? Xiao Shimu snorted. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that this is a false accusation. Prince Jin is still in infancy. Did Yelu Qi lose his mind and support him? Sometimes it doesn't matter whether you are wronged or not, and what the truth is. Yelu Yisin's eyes flickered, like a poisonous snake choosing its prey. If Prince Consort comes forward and accuses himself of being his accomplice and accuses him of rebellion, won't there be evidence? With the seed he planted earlier, the emperor will definitely not tolerate him. Xiao Shimu was so angry that he laughed. Are you crazy, or do you think I'm stupid? If I have an affair with another woman, I'll just die. But if I'm involved in a case of rebellion, it's a big crime. You see this person first. Yelu Yisin clapped his hands, and soon the door was opened from the outside. A woman slowly walked in. At this moment, everyone in the room not only stopped moving, but also almost stopped breathing. They had never seen such a beautiful person in their lives. Thanks to Bingo Big Ice Fruit by Hailang, WMO, Old Lie to Me, ABCPPP, Northern Hemisphere. Chapter 1499. She was not wearing any particularly gorgeous clothing, but no matter what kind of clothing it was, as long as it was worn on her body, it would become exceptionally outstanding. She did not wear any jewelry, nor did she apply any makeup on her face, because to her, jewelry and makeup were all superfluous. No matter how precious the jewelry was, it would not be able to diminish her radiance, and no matter how noble the makeup was, it would not be able to increase her beauty. Her beauty was indescribable by anyone. Some people used flowers to compare beauty, but how could flowers be as moving as her? Some people would say that she was like a person in a painting, But how could a painting brush be able to capture her charm? Even the fairies in the heavens would not be as gentle as her. Regardless of who it was, as long as they glanced at her, they would never be able to forget her. But she did not seem like she truly lived in this world. How could there be such a beauty like her in this world? It was as if she would suddenly disappear from the ground at any moment, riding the wind and flying away. Not only were the people in the room stunned, even Song Qing-shu, who was used to seeing stunning beauties outside the window, was also dumbstruck, thinking that this woman's beauty could only be compared to Chun Yuanyuan, Tajkis, Xiao Long Nu, and a few others. But he had seen too many stunning beauties. Very quickly he regained his composure and no longer looked at her, instead turning his head to stare at Zhao Min beside him. As a woman, Zhao Min was also awed by her beauty. While she was sighing, she suddenly sensed Song Qingshu's gaze. Turning her head, she discovered that he was staring at her with a burning gaze. She was stunned at first. Then she became furious. Even if you think I am not as beautiful as her, there is no need to humiliate me like this. Actually, she was underestimating herself too much. In terms of appearance, she was not inferior to the other party, and if her countess temperament was added in some aspects, she might even be a cut above the other party. But women have always been sensitive. Sensing Song Qingshu's gaze, she momentarily felt dizzy. Who knew that Song Qingshu would reply in a gentle voice? The woman inside is too beautiful. Only by looking at you can I not prostrate myself under her pomegranate skirt. Glib tongue. Zhao Min blushed and immediately turned her face away. However, the joy between her brows could not be concealed. The people in the room gradually recovered. Looking at Xiao Xia's expression, Yelu Isin revealed an enigmatic smile. Fuma, what do you think of this woman? This woman only exists in the heavens. How many times have I heard of her in the mortal world? When Xiao Xia said this, the image of Xiao Guanyin that he had seen in the imperial palace appeared in his mind. In reality, Xiao Guanyin was not inferior in the slightest, especially the extreme charm that seeped into the bones in her dignified manner. It made his heart itch unbearably. But she was the emperor's woman. He didn't even dare to think too much, unlike this woman who had endless space for imagination. Everyone could hear the hidden lust in Xiao Xia's voice. The woman frowned slightly. Anger flashed across Xiao 11 Lang's face, and Yelu Isin laughed even more happily. However, Xiao Xiaoma quickly shook his head. This woman is good, but she can only be enjoyed if she's alive. Even if she's a real fairy, I can't be involved in a treason case just for a moment of pleasure. Xiao 11 Lang finally couldn't hold back and said angrily, "What are you saying?" Yelu Isin stopped him and said with a half-smile, "You think I'm going to use this woman to seduce you? Isn't that so?" Xiao Xiaoma's expression immediately turned ugly. Yelu Isin chuckled lightly, not knowing whether it was mockery or disdain. Fuma, although you're an outstanding man, you're not qualified to enjoy such a beautiful woman. Xiao Xiaoma finally regained his rationality. He knew that he was right, but he still couldn't keep his face. Yelu Isin ignored him and continued. This woman is destined to be owned by only the emperor. Then why did you bring her here? Xiao Xiaoma said angrily. Yelu Isin replied, Fuma, didn't you just say that reporting Yelu Qi would implicate you in a treason case? But with her around, not only will you not be in any danger, you will also be rewarded by the emperor. What do you mean? Xiao Xiaoma frowned. Yelu Isin paced around the woman as he said, as long as you agree to cooperate with me, from that moment on, she will become your sister. You don't have to worry about the relevant procedures. I will make it flawless. When the time comes, you can report her and offer this beautiful sister to the emperor in the name of atonement. At that time, the emperor will definitely be pleased. Not only will he not kill you, but he will also reward you for your loyalty. Once you become the imperial uncle, won't your meteoric rise be just around the corner? Xiao Xiaoma's eyes flickered. Clearly, he was already somewhat tempted. Outside the window, Song Qingshu couldn't help but exclaim, Isn't he the emperor's son-in-law? Then he will become the emperor's brother-in-law. Is there such a thing? Zhao Min explained in a low voice, The dynasties of the grasslands don't care about this as much as Yuan dynasties do. Even after the death of the last Mongolian Khan, the women in the harem, except for the birth mother and a few others, will all be inherited by the next Khan. There's nothing wrong with this. A strange expression appeared on Song Qingshu's face. After a long time, he squeezed out 4 words, "The noble circles are really messy." Zhao Min was rendered speechless by his words. She snorted and looked away, ignoring him. Song Qingshu smiled and continued to look inside. Song Qingshu noticed that during this time, the woman didn't seem very happy. There seemed to be an unresolvable sorrow between her brows, as if her heart had died. It seems that she was forced. I wonder what her name is? Song Qingshu thought to himself, as if thinking the same thing as him. Xiao Xiaomo raised her head and asked, "Just who is this woman? I can't have a woman of unknown origin as my sister. I don't want to be consigned to eternal damnation by her in the future." It's no big deal to tell Fuma. This woman's name is Shun Bijuan. She was originally the Southern Song Dynasty's crown princess, so she is destined to be the emperor's woman. Fuma, you should believe me now. Yellow Isin's calm words were like a clap of thunder, shocking Song Qingshu so much that he couldn't speak. So she's Shun Bijuan. The Southern Song Dynasty was in an uproar because of the kidnapping of the crown princess. The people of the Imperial City Department couldn't find her no matter how hard they searched. He hadn't expected to find her in Liao, thousands of miles away. Thinking of some of the plots in the original novel, Song Qingshu thought that it was most likely this Xiao Xialong who had kidnapped her. Everyone said that beautiful women had unlucky fates. It seemed that this was true. Shun Bijuan's beauty had not only brought her luck, but brought her endless disaster. Even if she was successfully rescued, even if she was pure, with the Southern Song Dynasty's prevailing etiquette, she was destined not to become the crown princess. The imperial family would not allow such a tainted woman to marry into the family. Even more frightening was that the Shun family had been destroyed. Even if she returned, there would be no place for her to stand. Looking at the delicate woman in the room, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel a boundless sense of pity. It had nothing to do with her beauty, but rather her pitiful circumstances. But he was also very curious. Since this woman was Shun Bijuan, how could Yellow Isin be so sure that she would do as he asked? Wasn't he afraid that she would expose the truth in front of the emperor? As soon as this thought came to him, he became more and more curious. Unfortunately, he had thought of many possibilities and rejected them all. He didn't understand where Yellow Isin's confidence came from. At this time, Yellow Isin spoke again. Although the common people feel that being the emperor's son-in-law is a great honor, you yourself should know what a mere son-in-law can bring you. But as long as you cooperate with me, I guarantee that you will soar in the future and become an existence that all officials look up to. I think you know what choice you should make. Xiao Xiaoma chuckled. If I don't cooperate, you will probably accuse me of having an affair with someone else. Yellow Isin smiled slightly. The emperor's son-in-law is a smart person. There is no need to be so explicit. Xiao Xiaoma's expression changed several times. After an intense struggle, the temptation of the imperial uncle and Yellow Isin's power grew stronger and stronger. Fine, I agree. Yellow Isin laughed heartily. I hope we can work well together. The two sides chatted for a while longer before Yellow Isin stood and said his goodbyes. When the time is right, I will contact you. For now, I won't disturb the emperor's good night. Xiao Xiaoma hurriedly stood to send him off, but his eyes couldn't help but wander over to Shun Bijuan. He had just seen such a devastatingly beautiful woman, so how could he possibly be interested in her? After Yellow Isin left with Xiao Shi and Shun Bijuan, Song Qingshu said to Zhao Min, "Should I take this opportunity to test if Xiao Xiaomo is Murong Jingwe?" Zhao Min stopped him and pulled him away from the courtyard. "There's no need to test. He definitely isn't Murong Jingwe," Zhao Min said indifferently when they reached a secluded area. Song Qingshu nodded. He doesn't look like him. It had to be said that Murong Jingwe was an astute person, but Xiao Xiaoma didn't have any of his temperament at all. "Are you friends with Yellow Qi?" Zhao Min suddenly asked. Song Qingshu hesitated. Not really, but we've interacted a few times. We can barely be considered friends. Zhao Min smiled. That's good. Otherwise, you'd have to make a difficult choice between your friendship and the world. Song Qing smiled bitterly. If it were Xiao Feng, he might have hesitated, but Yalu Qi wasn't a saint. He couldn't take care of everyone. Looking at your eyes just now, it seems that you're going to save Shen Bijuan? Zhao Min suddenly asked. Song Qing hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded. Yes, she's really too pitiful. What's more, some of the people who are looking for her are my good friends. Zhao Min snorted. In the end, isn't it because she's beautiful? As a playboy, your protective feelings for the fairer sex are acting up again? Song Qing said sternly. Of course not. It's because the Shun family was exterminated not long ago. Before old Master Shun died, he asked me to save her. If I didn't see her, then it's fine. But if I did, how could I not save her? According to what you said, then I can't save her. Zhao Min replied in a low voice. Thank you, Valentine Binding, Phonin, Shuyu 174251992. Soy Sauce, Passerby Ding, Niklu, Wi-Fi 360. Chapter 1500. What? Song Qing asked, puzzled. Since the Shun family has been destroyed, where can she go if you save her? Zhao Min asked. What's more, I saw a faint desire to die in her eyes just now. The reason why she was at Yalu Isen's mercy was that she was threatened by her parents and family. That's why she didn't resist. After you rescued her, she found that the Shun family was gone. Do you think she would commit suicide? That's true. Song Qing nodded. But it's dangerous to let a girl like her go to the trapped devil's Denver. Are you trying to say that she's such a devastatingly beautiful girl? Zhao Min said with a faint smile, don't worry. If it was under other circumstances, she might really lose her chastity. But since Yalu Isen plans to present her to His Majesty in the future, he will not let anyone harm her before that. Otherwise, all his efforts will be in vain. Seeing that Song Qing was still hesitating, Zhao Min continued, don't forget the purpose of your trip. Although Yalu Isen is a treacherous official, as long as his plan succeeds, Liao will be in chaos. At that time, the pressure on the Jin Kingdom will be easily solved. Maybe you can take the opportunity to recruit people like Yalu Qi for your own use. Why not? After all, Song Qing was no longer the reckless and impulsive teenager. He realized that if he saved Shen Bijuan now, he would alert the enemy, and Yalu Isen's plan would be postponed indefinitely. In that case, Liao would not be in chaos and would naturally send troops to the south. Your Highness is right. For the time being, let's wait and see. Song Qing said in a low voice. Zhao Min pursed her lips and smiled faintly. Sitting and watching doesn't mean that we can't do anything. Didn't I mention to you before that another suspect is Xiao 11th Lang? This person's background is unknown and his identity is mysterious. You should take the opportunity to test him and see what secrets he has. Song Qing said hesitantly. Just now I saw that Xiao Shi Lang has the air of a Yin Zhao poet who sings a sad and tragic song. Such a character really does not resemble Murong Jingyue's despicable character. Zhao Min was also a little worried. I don't think so either, but you can't judge a book by its cover. Maybe Murong Jingyue is pretending to be like this. It's better to investigate. I think that Xiao 11 Lang's kung fu is quite high. If I go with you, I'll only hold you back. I won't accompany you. I'll go back first and see if there are any other clues. All right, be careful on the road, Song Qing reminded. Zhao Min smiled sweetly. Don't worry, I have many ways to save my life. Besides, don't I still have the traceless sand treading that you taught me? Escaping is not a problem. Song Qing knew that she was resourceful and had no need to worry. After saying goodbye to her with a smile, he chased after Xiao 11 Lang. On the way, Song Qing couldn't help but think to himself, although the chaos in Liao is very beneficial to me, it's not beneficial to Mongolia at all. Zhao Min is so smart. Didn't she think of this? Thinking of the woman in the original work who gave up everything for love, Song Qing was both surprised and delighted. Could it be that she has already unknowingly valued me so much? Even though Xiao 11 Lang had a head start, Song Qingshu's lightness skill gave chase with all his might. It didn't take long for him to catch up with their convoy. Yellow Eason was nowhere to be found at this time. Only Xiao 11 Lang was left driving the carriage and escorting Shen Bijuan. Song Qingshu wasn't in a hurry to go over. After all, Shen Bijuan was with him now. If he made a move now and the news reached Yellow Eason's ears, he would know that the plot just now had been exposed. This wasn't what Song Qingshu wanted to see. Suddenly, Shen Bijuan's terrified scream came from the carriage. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat when he heard it, and he instinctively wanted to rush over. But Xiao 11 Lang was closer by this time. In an instant, he turned around and lifted the curtain to see what was happening inside. At this moment, a cold light flashed in the night sky. Shen Bijuan, who was hiding behind the carriage door, stabbed down with her jade hairpin. It was fast and urgent. Coupled with the fact that it happened so suddenly, an ordinary person would probably have fallen for it. But Xiao 11 Lang was someone who often rolled on the edge of life and death. So how could he be tricked by a little girl like her? In an instant, he grabbed her wrist and instinctively swatted at her with his other hand. Why is it you? At this time, Xiao 11 Lang finally saw Shen Bijuan's appearance clearly. He hurriedly moved his palm to the side by a foot, instantly shattering a large hole in the wall of the carriage. Just kill me. Shen Bijuan raised her head and stared at him rather stubbornly. You've been very cooperative all this time, so you were looking for an opportunity to escape. Xiao 11 Lang let go of her hand and smiled bitterly. Usually, she had many guard by her side, so she didn't have a chance to escape even if she wanted to. Now that it was the dead of night, and there was only Xiao 11 Lang, she could successfully escape if she killed him. It was a pity that her long-planned attack had failed. Shen Bijuan turned her face away and ignored him. Xiao 11 Lang frowned and suddenly said, "It's one thing for you to attack me, but you mustn't take any risks with other people. They don't have my good temper." Hearing his words, Shen Bijuan turned her head to look at him in surprise, as if she couldn't figure out why he would say such a thing. Hiding in the shadows, Song Qingshu watched all of this with a half-smile. It looked like it was just like in the original work. Xiao 11 Lang had unwittingly fallen in love with Shen Bijuan. Thinking about it, it made sense. It was very difficult for a man to not fall for such an otherworldly, fairy-like woman. Next, Xiao 11 Lang brought Shen Bijuan to a secret residence. Song Qingshu noticed that although the outside looked calm, there were many hidden sentries inside. Danger lurked everywhere. It looked like this was where Shen Bijuan was usually imprisoned. Song Qingshu only remembered this place and had no intention of going in. He didn't want to alert the enemy when the time came. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xiao 11 Lang came out as expected. Song Qingshu nodded to himself. Yellow Eason wants to offer Shen Bijuan to His Majesty. He definitely won't allow a man to stay the night at her place. He quietly followed behind Xiao 11 Lang. He could see that he was a little dazed at the moment. If he made a move at this time, it would probably be very easy for him to succeed. Everyone says that beautiful women are the source of trouble. Although there are suspicions that women are the scapegoats, there is some truth to this. Since ancient times, it has always been heroes who have a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. Song Qingshu easily guessed that Xiao 11 Lang was definitely troubled by Shen Bijuan's matter. On one hand, it was the woman he loved, and on the other hand, it was his lord who had treated him with great kindness. How should he choose? Was he really going to watch the woman he loved marry another man? In a short period of time, Song Qingshu's mind was filled with a melodramatic drama about sin, debt, and ethics. Just as he was rejoicing in other people's misfortune, he suddenly thought of Yellow Nanshan's engagement and could no longer smile. Following that, the two gloomy men walked in silence, one in front of the other. Seeing that they were about to reach the imperial palace, Song Qingshu suddenly realized that Xiao 11 Lang was the assistant inspector of the imperial palace. Right now, he was most likely heading to the imperial palace for his shift. If he didn't make a move now, it would be too late. So, his figure flashed, and he went to grab him. Although Xiao 11 Lang was a little dazed because of Shun Bijuan's matter, he was still a top-notch expert. Sensing that something was wrong, he rolled to the ground and at the same time pulled out the curved knife at his waist and swung it behind him. A snow-white flash of a knife instantly slashed behind him in a sweeping manner. Song Qingshu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. This move was both defensive and offensive, and it was perfectly integrated, as expected of the super expert who became one with the knife in the original work. However, with Song Qingshu's current cultivation and the fact that he had the advantage of launching a sneak attack, how could he be injured by this stunning knife? Actually, if he wanted to, he could subdue Xiao 11 Lang in a few moves. However, firstly, he wanted to test out the other's martial arts, and secondly, he didn't want to expose his identity. After all, with Xiao 11 Lang's top-notch martial arts, there were not many people in the world who had the ability to subdue him in a few moves. Then, after getting rid of some older seniors, his identity was on the verge of being revealed. He didn't want to alert the enemy and alert Murong Jingyue, who was hiding in the dark. The two of them exchanged dozens of moves. Song Qingshu secretly frowned. Xiao Shi Lang's martial art style was unique, and most of his attainments were in saber techniques. He had fought with Murong Jingyue before, so he knew that Murong Jingyue's martial arts were extensive but somewhat messy. Right now, Xiao Shi Lang was focused and refined, so it was obvious that they were not of the same style. Still somewhat unwilling to give up, Song Qingshu finally used a killing move to pull at his face, just in case. Xiao 11 Lang was shocked, and the curved knife in his hand gave off an astonishing light. Even if he were to splash water on it now, it wouldn't miss a single drop. Unfortunately, it still couldn't stop the other's hand. Song Qingshu's hand was like a visitor from the heavens, ignoring his defense and grabbing at his face. With such direct contact with his face, Song Qingshu could naturally tell that he wasn't wearing anything like a human skin mask. It seemed that he was indeed not Murong Jingyue. Xiao 11 Lang had thought that he was dead for sure when the other party grabbed his face directly. After all, an expert of this level could easily crush a rock with a casual grab, and his head couldn't be harder than a rock. He had closed his eyes and waited for his death, but after a long time, there was no movement at all. When he opened his eyes, that person had already disappeared. Xiao 11 Lang couldn't help but be alarmed. If it weren't for the fact that his somewhat tattered clothes proved that there had been a fierce battle just now, he would have thought that he had run into a ghost. He went straight back to Zhao Min's residence. Zhao Min was in the study, deep in thought. When she saw him return, she hurriedly asked, "How was it?" Song Qingshu shook his head. It wasn't Murong Jingyue. Zhao Min revealed an expression that said she had expected it, but she still couldn't hide her disappointment. It seems that all our leads have been cut off. I've gone through these names again, but I didn't see any new suspicious characters. Song Qingshu hurriedly comforted her. Murong Jingyue is treacherous and cunning. If he could be found so easily, he wouldn't have been able to hide in Liao for so long without attracting attention. Don't worry, since we're in Shangjing now, the fox will show his tail. I hope so. A deep worry emerged in Zhao Min's eyes. After all, she shuddered at the thought that there was a worm lurking in her head. Thanks to Shuyu 53494589, Autumn Soliloquy, Huang Weining 0, Pruer Extraordinary Mars, late 2595, First Rays of Dawn, Age, Shuyu 31145-287, Boy Without a Trace, Windy, Sword Stops Dragon Carriage, Lion 201310, Oath of Luck Hypocrisy, Why Time Breeds Love Why. Chapter 1501. That night, the two of them got together and analyzed the civil and military officials in Shangjing again. Unfortunately, after discussing for the second half of the night, they still did not get any results. In the end, because they were too tired, the two of them unknowingly fell asleep in the study. The next day, Zhao Min woke up even earlier. She was shocked at first, But when she saw Song Qing-shu sleeping on the table opposite her, a faint smile gradually appeared on the corner of her mouth. She tiptoed out to freshen up. Zhao Min noticed that the servants were looking at her strangely. At first, she was a little puzzled, but she quickly realized that these servants were shocked that she slept in the same room with a man. Although the two of them did not have any physical contact in the room, the people outside did not know. In their eyes, Zhao Min had obviously slept with Song Qing-shu. Zhao Min's cheeks turned red, and a trace of anger flashed in her eyes. However, it was not convenient to explain such a misunderstanding. Could she just catch a servant and say that nothing happened between her and Song Qing-shu last night? First, they would definitely not believe it, and second, she could not afford to lose face. After washing up in a hurry, she came back and found that the initiator was still snoring loudly. Zhao Min was furious. She directly walked over and kicked his stool. "Lazy pig, get up." Song Qing-shu was instantly startled awake. If he was not good at martial arts, he might have fallen to the ground. "What's going on?" Seeing the glistening water stain at the corner of his mouth, Zhao Min threw the towel in her hand to him with a look of disgust. "You are so old, but you still drool while sleeping. So disgusting." When she said this, her little face could not help but turn red. It turned out that when she woke up, she was in a similar situation. Song Qing-shu smiled embarrassedly and took the towel to wipe the corner of his mouth. "I don't know how many lifetimes of good fortune I have accumulated to be able to have the princess wash up and serve me." As he spoke, he suddenly smelled a faint fragrance on the towel. He could not help but look strange. "It smells so good. Did you use it before?" Only then did Zhao Min realize that she had just thrown her things to him. She was secretly ashamed, but she couldn't admit it. "How could it be mine? It belongs to Auntie Wu, who cooks in the yard." "Oh, in that case, I will use it to wipe my feet," Song Qing-shu said deliberately. "How dare you?" This sentence instantly caused Zhao Min to frown. Seeing Song Qing-shu's expression, she immediately understood that she had fallen into his trap. "Bastard," Zhao Min scolded, but she couldn't help but laugh first. "I can't be bothered to argue with you. After washing up, let's go out and taste the delicacies of Shangjing." Very quickly, the two of them appeared on the main street of the city and tasted the various specialties of Shangjing. Because they couldn't think of any clues after racking their brains for so long last night, the two of them tacitly didn't mention Murong Jingyue's matter and treated it as a complete vacation. It was rare for the two of them to have such a chance to relax, so they especially cherished it. It was a pity that they didn't enjoy it for a long time before one of Zhao Min's men came and glanced at Song Qing-shu. The man hesitated again and again. After what happened last night, he had already recognized this person as the son-in-law of the Riyang mansion and thought that there was no need to hide it from him. However, Zhao Min had always been very strict with her subordinates, and he was worried that he would be punished by Zhao Min afterward. In the end, he didn't say it publicly, but approached Zhao Min and reported it in a low voice. "What happened?" After the man left, Song Qing-shu asked casually. It was not difficult for him to eavesdrop with his skills, but out of respect, he didn't eavesdrop on a man's conversation. "The delegation of the Southern Song dynasty is about to arrive at a small town 30 miles away from the city. They could have entered Shangjing today, but it seems that the Southern Song dynasty attached great importance to the auspicious time, so they plan to rest outside the city for a night and enter the city tomorrow morning," Zhao Min answered. The delegation of the Southern Song dynasty. Song Qing-shu's eyes narrowed. He knew that they were here to discuss how to attack the Jin kingdom from both the north and the south. Today is the best chance to sabotage the peace talks. If we wait until they enter the city, they will be watched by all the forces, and with the protection of the Liao army, it will be more than twice as difficult to do anything. Song Qing-shu's expression was strange. "Are you hinting me to do something?" Zhao Min smiled sweetly. "I didn't say anything." Song Qing-shu finally couldn't hold back his curiosity. He looked at her with burning eyes and asked, "Logically speaking, the Song dynasty and the Liao dynasty attacking the Jin kingdom is the most advantageous for the Mongolians. Why do you help me?" Zhao Min blushed and looked away. You don't have to think about it. I'm not helping you. I'm helping myself. Helping yourself? Song Qingshu was confused. It's beneficial for the Mongolians, but it might not be beneficial for the Ryong mansion. These years, I've sensed that the Great Khan has begun to be suspicious of my father. He hasn't done anything because he needs my father's help to govern the Central Plains. But if the most powerful enemy in the Central Plains, the Jin Kingdom, collapses, we have to be careful. Zhao Min looked to the north as she spoke. Her eyes were full of worry. It seems that the power struggle in the Mongolians has reached a white-hot stage. Song Qingshu thought to himself. He joked, "It seems that you're planning to support the enemy. Don't make it sound so bad." Zhao Min glared at him. "It takes wisdom to protect yourself. By the way, are you going or not?" "Yes, of course." Song Qingshu knew the purpose of his trip to the north. Of course, he couldn't let Song Liao form an alliance so easily. "Are you going with me?" Zhao Min blushed and turned her face away. "Why should I go with you? It's not my business." "That's true." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "Then let's split up. I'll go stop the Southern Song delegation, and you continue to investigate the whereabouts of Murong Jingwei." "All right." Zhao Min was straightforward and did not beat around the bush. After parting ways with Zhao Min, Song Qingshu hurried to the small town outside the city. 30 li was not a long journey, but because it was still early, he deliberately slowed down his pace, lest the envoy mission was in high spirits early in the morning. About 2 hours later, he finally arrived at the small town. Liao arranged for the Southern Song delegation to stay at the courier station. Song Qingshu secretly investigated and roughly figured out the size of the delegation. This time, the Southern Song delegation didn't send many people, only about 20. Obviously, they wanted to make the delegation smaller and less likely to be discovered by the enemy. Except for the envoy and the deputy envoy, the rest were all experts. It seemed that the Song court also attached great importance to the security of the delegation. "I don't know how to stop the alliance between the two countries." Song Qingshu hid in a tree and was very distressed. In fact, he had a vague answer in his heart, but he didn't want to face it. To destroy the alliance between the two countries, the simplest way was to kill the delegation. A more advanced way was to deliberately let 1 or 2 people go and then put the blame on the Khitans. At that time, even if the Song court let bygones be bygones and sent another delegation, they could buy a few more months to go back and forth. Moreover, they could keep on killing until the two countries grew suspicious of each other. Then, they would have succeeded. But Song Qingshu wasn't such a cruel and murderous person, especially for his own interests in the Jin Kingdom. He couldn't get over killing the Song people. If Zhao Min were here, she would probably laugh at me for being soft-hearted. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he subconsciously hid in the bushes. Not long after, a masked man suddenly rushed in from outside and snuck into the relay station. Why does this person look so familiar? Song Qingshu was puzzled, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him. Just as he was having a headache, he suddenly heard a low cry from inside. Although it stopped abruptly, Song Qingshu could instantly tell that it was the scream of a person before death. This person, Song Qingshu was startled. Just as he was hesitating whether he should go over to take a look, the Khitan warriors at the relay station were clearly alarmed as well. One by one, they rushed over with weapons in their hands while shouting. In just a short while, the man in black had already walked out of the house. Drops of blood slowly seeped out of the long sword in his hand. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. He had already recognized the sword. It was the sword of the Shui people. At this time, the group of Khitan warriors found the Southern Song diplomatic mission lying in a pool of blood. They were all shocked and shouted as they rushed toward the murderer. There was a flash of blood in the air. The Shui people's sword was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. It shone with a blood-red but poignant light, reaping one life after another. After about the time for a joss stick to burn, there was no one left alive in the relay station. The Shui people took out a handkerchief to wipe off the blood on the sword. They slowly sheathed the sword and leisurely walked out as if nothing had happened. Song Qingshu quietly went into the room to investigate, and found that the Song diplomatic mission had all been killed with one strike. Many of the guards had just pulled out their sabers, and their eyes were still filled with shock. It was as if they didn't expect the opponent's sword to be so fast. The Shui people are from the Imperial City Department. Why did he kill the diplomatic mission of the Imperial Court? Song Qingshu was shocked. The development of the plot was beyond his expectations. The more he thought about it, the more suspicious he became. Song Qingshu finally decided to follow and take a look. The Shui people's lightness skill was very good. In a short time, they were already a few miles away from the small town. It was thanks to Song Qingshu's lightness skill that it was difficult to catch up to him. Seeing the back of the Shui people, Song Qingshu slowed down. The Shui people's swordsmanship was already one of the best in the world. If they really fought, it would be impossible to capture him in a short time. Moreover, the Shui people had a tough personality. It was most likely that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. It was better to secretly follow behind him and see where he was going and who the mastermind was. The Shui people held a position in the Imperial City Department. Not only was his martial arts powerful, but he was also good at tracking and concealment. It was all thanks to Song Qingshu's current cultivation that he could follow behind him without anyone noticing. Even so, he was almost discovered by the Shui people 2 or 3 times. They actually entered Shangjing. Looking at the city gate in the distance, Song Qingshu was even more surprised. Could it be that the Shui people are colluding with the Liao people? However, he quickly denied this guess. From the perspective of the Liao people, there was no reason for them to kill the Song diplomatic mission. However, the Shui people couldn't possibly be working for the Jin Kingdom, could they? As the highest official in the Jin Kingdom, Song Qingshu naturally knew that it was impossible. He became even more curious about the Shui people's motives. He followed the Shui people all the way into the city. He walked left and right and soon arrived at a secluded house. Chapter 1502. Song Qingshu quietly followed him in and saw him walk into a room. Soon, his voice was heard. "My task is completed. The rest is up to you." Who's he talking to? Song Qingshu was secretly shocked. He quietly poked through the window and looked in. He saw that other than Shui, there was a man and a woman in the room. The man was almost middle-aged, but he was handsome and elegant. The woman was much younger, charming and extremely alluring. Song Qingshu was greatly shocked because he recognized the identities of these two people. The middle-aged man was the Jia Estate's Jia Zhen, and the charming and graceful woman was actually the Ningguo Estate's eldest young mistress, Qin Keqing. Thinking of the time when he accidentally spent the night with her, as Wu Qianda in Lin and City, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat when he recalled the charm of that period. Women are flesh and blood made of water. This phrase was perfectly embodied by Qin Keqing. Her gentleness and her nude were all existences that could make a man go completely crazy. Even though Song Qingshu had experienced many flowers, he still couldn't forget them when he thought about them. Why is she here? Song Qingshu directly ignored Jia Zhen, and only the bright and charming figure was left in his mind. At this time, he heard Jia Zhen reply, "We have completed half of our task this time. The rest is to investigate the matter of the Mandarin duck saber." Mandarin duck saber? Song Qingshu was startled. He didn't expect to hear these 3 words again. Because he had read the original work, he always thought that the secret of the Mandarin duck saber being invincible was a big hoax. He didn't expect that there were still so many people in this world who were willing to fall into it. "This is your problem. I'm only responsible for killing people," Shui replied coldly, as if he didn't care about anything else. Song Qingshu secretly thought Shui was a member of the Imperial City Department. Why would he be involved with the Jia clan and even kill the envoy of the Imperial Court? Wasn't this blatant treason? Fortunately, Song Qingshu had stayed in the southern Song dynasty for a period of time and had some understanding of the various forces in Lin. He soon realized that although Shui Yiren was an official of the Imperial City Department, he was also a member of the Shui family. The Jia, Shui, sure, and Wang families had always been on the same side. This time, the biggest winner of Ma Qifeng's downfall was Jia Shidao's political enemy, Han Xingzhou. Moreover, this northern expedition was organized by Han Xingzhou. If the northern expedition was successful, Han Xingzhou would already be the most powerful person in the imperial court. With his military exploits, wouldn't his prestige be unparalleled? How could Jia Shidao compete with him? Therefore, the entire southern Song dynasty hoped that Han Yuanzhou would succeed in the northern expedition, except for the Jia family. Naturally, they would try their best to sabotage the northern expedition, and the most effective way was to destroy the alliance between the southern Song dynasty and Liao. As long as Liao did not send troops on time, the chances of the Jin kingdom successfully dealing with the Song dynasty's northern expedition would be much higher. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. As the ancient said, meat eaters are despicable. That's true. These people in high positions, their first consideration is not the people of the country, but their own power and interests. It's really despicable. But he also understood that this was human nature, and there was nothing to be despised about. After Shui Yi and the others left, Qin Keqing said to Jia Zhen, "It's getting late. I'm going to rest." Jia Zhen smiled and said, "There are no outsiders here, so why are you so distant?" As he spoke, he tried to hug her. Song Qingshu frowned and raised his finger unconsciously, ready to teach him a lesson. Although he didn't have much of a relationship with Qin Keqing, she was a woman who had been intimate with him. After all, how could he tolerate her being bullied by another man? Fortunately, Qin Keqing reacted quickly and dodged. Although we are in a foreign country, we still have to avoid arousing suspicion. Jia Zhen frowned and was about to take another step forward when he suddenly thought of something. His gaze involuntarily fell between his legs, and his expression instantly became extremely ugly. He thought of the nightmarish encounter he had during this period of time. He didn't know when it started, but he realized that he didn't have any reaction down there when facing beautiful women. At the start, he didn't take it to heart, thinking that it was because he was too addicted to wine and women that his body was deficient and it would be fine after some recuperation. But who knew that after eating a lot of tonics and abstinence for a long period of time, when he thought it was about time, he found a concubine, but who knew that there was still no reaction at all. Only then did he panic and secretly find a doctor check on him. Only then did he find out that he had lost that ability. Because Song Qingshu's soul transferring spell would erase his memory at that time, Jia Zhen didn't know what was going on at all. He only thought that it was because he was greedy for women that it had become useless. For a moment, he was angry and embarrassed, so he secretly looked for all kinds of folk remedies to cure himself while deliberately hiding this matter. Although this task was assigned by Jia Shidao, he actually planned to go out to relax and see if there would be any improvement. Moreover, the bright and charming daughter-in-law also came with him. After all, every time he touched her body, Jia Zhen would be extremely excited. Previously, there were many people in Lin and City, so it was difficult for him to do anything. Now that he was in a foreign country, he naturally didn't have those concerns. But he never thought that when he just hinted at Qin Keqing, she would directly reject him. That was not all. What made him even more desperate was that even if he touched Qin Keqing, his body still didn't have any reaction. So after Qin Keqing rejected him with righteous words, Jia Zhen didn't have time to say anything, and he just left in a daze. Qin Keqing didn't expect that he would be sent away so easily. For a moment, she couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. Originally, Song Qingshu wanted to go in and ask her something, but on second thought, Qin Keqing only had sex with the fake Wu Tianda for one night. She didn't know him if he went in, so it would be difficult for him to talk to her for free. And if he wasn't careful, it would be easy to alert the enemy. Thinking that he had gotten the information from the previous conversation, Song Qingshu finally took a deep look at the charming young woman in the room and left quietly. When he returned to the yard, Zhao Min looked at him in surprise. "What took you so long?" "It's a long story," Song Qingshu said with a wry smile. "It's not a long story." Zhao Min looked at him with disdain. I just got the news that all the people in the Southern Song Dynasty's diplomatic corps have been killed by a mysterious person. I originally thought you were a little indecisive, but I didn't expect you to be so fierce." There was a strange surprise in her tone, as if she was a little appreciative but also a little disappointed. "That person isn't me." Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly and roughly told her what had just happened. Shui Yi's people. After hearing this answer, for some reason, Zhao Min suddenly relaxed and then continued. "It's probably the power struggle between Jia Sherdao and Han Xingzhou." Her analysis was roughly the same as Song Qingshu's. "I also got another piece of news." Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment and told them what he had heard about the Mandarin duck saber. As he spoke, he commented in a sarcastic tone, "Are these people crazy? How could they believe such nonsense?" "It might not necessarily be nonsense," Zhao Min suddenly said with a serious expression. "What?" Song Qingshu looked at her curiously and waited for her to continue. Zhao Min said, "In fact, I also got similar information recently. It said that the legendary Mandarin duck knife would appear in Shangjing. I didn't take it seriously at first, but now that you mentioned that the Jia family also came for it, I suddenly realized that it's not that simple." "You also got the information about the Mandarin duck knife?" Song Qingshu asked in surprise. Zhao Min stood up and walked to the window. Looking at the sunset, she said in a distant voice, "I don't know when it started, but there was a rumor in Jianghu. It said that the person who got the secret of the Mandarin duck knife would be invincible in the world. Although there is no beginning and no end, for some reason, everyone believes it. Among them, there are many highly respected seniors in Jianghu. It is said that there was a period of bloodshed for this saber. About 20 years ago, the Mandarin duck saber suddenly disappeared without a trace, and this rumor was gradually forgotten. But recently, for some reason, it has become popular again." Song Qingshu thought that the Mandarin duck knife had probably fallen into the hands of the Shun family 20 years ago. Later, the Shun family had been studying it, but they hadn't been able to crack its secret. In the end, the secret was leaked, Shun Bijuan was kidnapped, and the Shun family was wiped out. "What does the Mandarin duck knife look like?" Song Qingshu asked curiously. Zhao Min shook her head and said, "No one knows. It is said that all those who have seen the Mandarin duck knife are dead." "So mysterious?" Song Qingshu looked surprised. He suddenly realized a problem. Jia Sherdao had a lot of talented people working for him. Why did he send Jia Zhun, who was a playboy, and Qin Keqing, who was weak, to take this task? Jia Zhun was a bit lustful, but she was also capable. But what was Qin Keqing doing here? Song Qingshu didn't believe that Jia Sherdao was here to relieve Jia Zhun's boredom. There must be a reason for her to come. Before, Song Qingshu didn't take the Mandarin duck knife seriously, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that he thought that the legend of the Mandarin duck knife was true, he suddenly realized that it was suspicious for Qin Keqing to be here. After talking with Zhao Min and returning to his room, Song Qingshu hesitated for a long time. Finally, he made up his mind. He found some disguise materials in his bag and disguised himself as Wu Qianda. Then, he quietly disappeared into the night sky. After Qin Keqing forced Jia Zhun to leave, she went to bed early, but she couldn't fall asleep. During these days, whenever she closed her eyes, the images of that night would appear in her mind. She was flipped over and her neck was entangled. That man's strong arms, that extremely oppressive and masculine aura. Qin Keqing's face was so red that it was about to ooze blood. She was so embarrassed that she pulled the blanket over her head and rolled around on the bed unconsciously. I was actually subdued like that. Thinking back to the scene of that night, Qin Keqing's long and charming eyes were about to seep out water. But skills in bed are also skills. Just at this moment, she suddenly felt a warm hand caressing her back. Qin Keqing turned pale with fright, thinking that Jia Zhun had snuck in. But when she lifted the blanket and saw the appearance of the man in front of her, she couldn't help but laugh foolishly. So I fell asleep. I actually dreamed of him again. Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't expect this reaction from her. When he was about to speak, Qin Keqing suddenly reached out and hugged him. Her abnormally soft body then pressed against him. It's not easy to dream of you, so let's have a sweet dream. Thank you to King of Meat Pigeon, Prince Loser, Valentine underscore, Huang Waning 0, Engrave, Toss a Cup for Number, Space Shuttle, Doway, Shuyu 53494589, Phenomenal Mars, Late 2595, Traceless Boy, Windy, Dawn, and other enthusiastic readers for their support and monthly votes. Chapter 1503. Song Qing-shu was startled. The reason why he disguised himself as Wu Tianda was because it would be easier to gain her trust and then get information from her. Who knew she would have such a reaction? He was not Lu Xiaohui, but this was not the right time. Zhao Min was burning with anxiety at home. So how could he have the nerve to go out to flirt? Are you dreaming, madam? Song Qing-shu pushed Qin Keqing away and asked gently. A trace of confusion flashed in Qin Keqing's eyes. She suddenly came to her senses and sat up straight, so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Song Qing-shu was worried that he would agitate her, so he did not say anything and just looked at her with a smile. Why are you here? After a long while, Qin Keqing barely managed to calm down. Her curiosity got the upper hand. He had already been appointed by the imperial court to be in charge of the military in Sichuan. He should have been in charge by now. So why was he here thousands of miles away? Because I miss madam, Song Qing-shu said with a grin. Annoying, Qin Keqing shrank back and her face suddenly paled. How did you know my identity? She was not stupid. If he could find her here, how could he not know that she was the young mistress of the Jiao residence? Song Qing-shu reached out and stroked her hair. The young mistress of Ningguo residence is the most beautiful woman in the capital. All the men in Lin want to get close to you. How can I not know you? Qin Keqing was embarrassed when she heard this. However, there was also a trace of pride. After all, which woman did not want to be praised as beautiful? Even if this kind of beauty would bring misfortune to her. Looking at the beard on Song Qing-shu's face, Qin Keqing's eyes sparkled. You have a beard one moment and no beard the next. Which faces you? Song Qing-shu was startled. Only then did he recall that he had met her with his original appearance when he snuck into the Jiao residence at night. Later on, when he had spent the night with her as Wu Tianda, she had recognized the same aura. However, he had forgotten about this because he had been too busy recently. If I had known this, I would not have changed my appearance. Song Qing-shu was very depressed. After spending so much time, it turned out that he had done some useless work. Qin Keqing caressed his face. Who exactly are you? She had lived in a rich and powerful family, so how could she not understand how treacherous this level was? Thinking about the mysterious identity of the other party, who might be deliberately trying to get close to her, and then thinking about the series of possible consequences, her heart suddenly turned incomparably cold. It was an accident that we met, so why do you want to get to the bottom of it? It's not good for anyone. Song Qing-shu had a delicate relationship with the Jia Sherdao group. If Qin Keqing found out about his identity, even if she kept it a secret for him, he didn't believe that Qin Keqing could resist Jia Sherdao and the others. If his identity was exposed, it would be troublesome. But you clearly know my identity. Qin Keqing bit her lips and looked at him angrily. However, she was naturally charming. Even when she was angry, she was still extremely charming. Just think of me as a heart thief, Song Qing-shu replied. Qin Keqing pouted and mumbled, What heart thief? It's obviously a flower thief. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He had to explain, Please rest assured, madam, I would never do anything to hurt or threaten you. Qin Keqing looked at him blankly. This familiar yet strange man was full of mystery. She didn't even know his name, but she didn't know why she was willing to believe him at this moment. It was as if there was a strange magic in his voice. Madam, why are you not in Lin and City, but in this bitter, cold place? Song Qing-shu pretended to ask casually. Although Shangjing was also a big city, it was after all not as livable as Jiangnan. Well, I have a reason to come. Qin Keqing showed a trace of helplessness between her eyebrows. Is it because of the Mandarin duck knife? Song Qing-shu suddenly asked. Qin Keqing instantly became alert. How do you know? I guessed. Song Qing-shu was a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have pretended to be a gentleman at the beginning. He would have just gone with the flow and rekindled their old relationship. It would have been much easier to ask when they were intimate. Although Qin Keqing was weak, she was not stupid. She quickly guessed his intention. She rolled her eyes and came up with a plan. It's too unfair for me to answer your questions alone. How about this? We ask each other questions in turn, and each other must promise not to hide anything. Song Qing-shu was dazed and said with a wry smile, "All right, let me ask first." Qin Keqing was afraid of being taken advantage of, so she rushed to say, "Are you Wu Tianda or not?" Song Qing-shu shook his head. No, there was no need to hide this from her. No wonder Wu Tianda was not affected in the last competition in front of the palace. Thinking of that, Jia Sherdao would angrily ask if he had tried his best that night. Qin Keqing couldn't help but blush. At the same time, her question had been answered. "Since you're done asking, it's my turn now," Song Qing-shu said with a smile. "There are so many capable people in the Jia's mansion to investigate the whereabouts of the Mandarin duck knife. Why do you, the young mistress, have to do it in person?" "Because my mother saw the Mandarin duck knife." Qin Keqing's words were earth-shattering. "What? Your mother saw the Mandarin duck knife?" Song Qing-shu was shocked. The Mandarin duck knife was extremely mysterious in Jianghu. It had always been a legend, and no one had ever seen the real thing. Now he didn't even know what the Mandarin duck knife looked like. Yes, Qin Keqing nodded. She couldn't help feeling proud of her mother. Song Qing-shu was a little suspicious at first, but thinking that her mother was Fong La's daughter, Princess Jinji, she might have seen it. "What on earth does the Mandarin duck knife look like?" Qin Keqing shook her head. "That's another question for you." Only then did Song Qing-shu remember the rules they had agreed on. Then ask. Qin Keqing looked at him with a burning gaze. "I want to know what you really look like. Didn't you see it last time?" Song Qing-shu said with a bitter smile. "Who knows if that's your other face?" Qin Keqing's tone was a little resentful. Song Qing-shu sighed and took off the human skin mask. "The reason why I wore a mask is that you're more familiar with this face." Seeing the man in front of her at such a close distance, his eyebrows were like swords, and he was many times more handsome than Wu Tianda. Qin Keqing couldn't help blushing. Although she had a deep impression of the Wu Tianda from that night, and could not forget him, she didn't like the full beard. It pricked her. Now that she saw his original appearance, it could be considered as fulfilling one of her wishes. "I like this face more," Qin Keqing mumbled quickly. Seeing the other's surprised gaze, she quickly changed the topic. "It's your turn to ask." Song Qing-shu shrugged his shoulders. "Didn't I already ask?" Chapter 1504. Song Qing-shu secretly nodded his head. The information he got from old Master Shun was similar to this. "Why did your mother see the Mandarin duck knife?" Song Qing-shu couldn't help but ask. "According to what I know, the Mandarin duck knife seems to be in the hands of the Shanin Shin family. Princess Jinji used to be in the Ming Dynasty. At that time, the Ming Dynasty was also considered to be in Jiangnan. Could it be that there was some connection between the two? What Shin family? The Mandarin duck knife originally belonged to our Ming Dynasty." Qin Keqing said indignantly. "Ming Dynasty?" Song Qing-shu's expression changed. He really didn't know about this. He didn't seem to have seen it in the books before. "Of course." Qin Keqing's eyes flashed with a strange light, as if she was reminiscing and reminiscing. "The Mandarin duck knife has always been in the hands of the Ming Dynasty. Unfortunately, it was lost at some point, and only the Mandarin duck knife was left. No one in the sect was able to see through the secret of the Mandarin duck knife. However, the past sect leaders all remembered the words passed down from generation to generation. The Mandarin duck knife hides the secret of invincibility under the heavens. Later on, my maternal grandfather was defeated and the Mandarin duck knife was passed down to Prime Minister Zhong, hoping that he could preserve the seed of the Ming Dynasty. Later on, Prime Minister Zhong was killed by Kong Yinzhou at Dongting Lake, and the Mandarin duck knife was taken over by the new sect leader, Yang Yao. After that, Yu Fei pacified Dongting Lake, and the Mandarin duck knife disappeared. It was from then on that the secret that only the sect leader knew spread to the pugilistic world, causing everyone to know that the Mandarin duck knife hides a big secret. So that's how it is. Song Qing-shu nodded inwardly. This matched the words of the Shun family's eldest master. The Shun family had obtained the Yang knife after Yang Yao's defeat and death. In order to deceive people, they changed its name to the deer cutter knife. That's right. The secret of the Mandarin duck knife's invincibility under the heavens wouldn't be that the two knives have the words benevolent, invincible engraved on the hilt. Song Qing-shu finally couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. Back then, he had always been brooding over this deceptive ending. How is this possible? Qin Keqing looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Back then, I heard my mother mention that the Mandarin duck saber has the 4 words, the benevolent are invincible. But just these 4 words were passed down from generation to generation by the brilliant sect master of the Ming dynasty. Song Qing-shu was surprised. It seemed that because of his arrival, the plot of this world had changed a little due to the butterfly effect. However, it made sense when he thought about it. Is it because of this that they sent you here? Song Qing-shu finally understood the crux of the matter. Qin Keqing was one of the few people who knew about the Mandarin duck saber. She was the most suitable person to find a Mandarin duck saber. I think so. Qin Keqing nodded and suddenly said angrily, You've already asked me so many questions, it's my turn to ask you. Ask away. Song Qing-shu was in a good mood after obtaining new information on this trip. Qin Keqing was about to speak when Shui Yi's voice came from outside. Young Mistress Rome, is there anyone in your room? No, there's no one. Qin Keqing was shocked and said unnaturally. Then why did I hear voices? Shui Yi said suspiciously. Qin Keqing panicked. Then you might have heard wrongly. Impossible, there's no problem with my hearing. Shui Yi snorted. Qin Keqing's face turned pale as she looked at Song Qing-shu for help. What should I do? Song Qing-shu pointed outside the window, indicating that he would leave first. Qin Keqing frowned. She still had many questions that she didn't have time to ask him. She didn't want him to leave so quickly. At this moment, Shui Yi's voice sounded again. Now that we're in danger, we have to be careful. I'll be coming in soon in case you get kidnapped. But I'm already asleep. Qin Keqing said anxiously. If you're asleep, then put on your clothes. I'll come in to make sure you're safe before leaving. Shui Yi's voice was as cold as ice. He didn't have any tender feelings for her, just because she was a beautiful woman. What happened? Jiazhen's voice came from outside the room again. Clearly, he was alarmed in the room. Hearing Shui voice out his doubts, Jiazhen also became worried. Keqing, open the door and let us check. Wait, let me put on my clothes. Qin Keqing couldn't hold on any longer. She could only move closer to Song Qing-shu's ear and quickly say, You still owe me a few questions. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. I'll come back to find Madam. See you again if fate wills it. Seeing that the people outside were about to rush in, he didn't stay any longer and left silently through the window. As for how Qin Keqing would explain to her companions later, he wasn't too worried. After all, she was experienced and knowledgeable. Besides, as long as her companions didn't find any evidence, she would be able to deal with it. By the time Song Qing-shu returned to the courtyard, Zhao Min had already fallen asleep. Song Qing-shu could only return to his room and lie on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. He secretly regretted in his heart. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have pretended to be Lu Xiaohui. With a beauty like Qin Keqing accompanying him, this long night would definitely be more interesting than today. Of course, this thought only flashed by. Soon, his attention returned to the purpose of this trip. One was to stop Song Liao's peace talks, the second was to find Murong Jingwei, and the third was to stop Liao from marrying Xixia. As for the secret of the Mandarin duck saber, it wasn't that important. As Shui Yi's men killed the Song diplomatic group, the first matter was unexpectedly solved. The investigation of Murong Jingwei was in a deadlock because all the clues were cut off. Yalu Nanxian also didn't cooperate with the escape of the marriage. It seemed that the marriage was inevitable. The more Song Qing-shu thought about it, the more annoyed he became. He didn't fall asleep until the latter half of the night. Early the next morning, Song Qing-shu was easily awakened by the noise outside his room. When he went out, he found Zhao Min practicing her swordsmanship in the courtyard. Originally, he was a little angry when he was woken up, but when he saw the figure dancing gracefully among the flowers, that soft and slender waist, the resentment that Song Qing-shu had accumulated last night instantly disappeared without a trace. Like a light cloud covering the moon, like snow drifting in the wind. Princess swordsmanship is truly excellent. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but applaud. Zhao Min sheathed her sword. Because of the exercise, she was lightly gasping for breath. Her fair face had a slight blush. The Prince of Qi's martial arts are matchless. How could this little girl's superficial swordsmanship be of any importance? Is there a need to say such false praise? In addition, you use the words that Chun Si-wang used to say to sister-in-law. It is neither auspicious nor sincere. Song Qing-shu was startled. With a wry smile, he asked, "Why does Princess seem to have eaten gunpowder this morning? Who provoked you?" Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him, not answering his question. Instead, she said, "If you compare me to Lady Zhen, you should know that Chow Pai loved her so much at the beginning. In the end, he grew old and faded, dying so miserably. I can only say that you men are all fickle and fickle." Song Qing-shu instantly broke out in a waterfall of sweat. What was going on? He didn't know how he had provoked her. He unconsciously replied, "Chow Pai gave Jinmi the cold shoulder, but it wasn't because she grew old and faded." Then why? Zhao Min was suddenly startled, looking at him curiously. Song Qing-shu often chatted with her like this on their journey. Now that he saw that she was in a bad mood, he didn't dare to be careless. He tried to divert her attention by showing off. The cause of this incident goes back to the 21st year of Jian, when Cao Cao went south to conquer Sun Quan. His wife Lady Bian, Chow Pai, and concubine Jin son and daughter were with him. Cao Cao left Cao Ji to guard Yi City and said, "I used to be the Duanqiu magistrate, 23 years old. Thinking about what I have done now, I have no regrets. You are already 23 years old, so I won't force you." What a strange thing to say. What's so strange about that? At that time, Cao Cao preferred Cao Ji and intended to make him the crown prince. It's normal for him to reveal his true feelings in his words. Zhao Min frowned. What are you trying to say by rambling on so much? What I want to say is that Lady Zhen was also left in Yi City at that time. Her father-in-law, mother-in-law, husband, and even children weren't with her. They didn't come back until the 9th month of the next year. When they came back, Madame Bien was surprised to find that Lady Zhen was radiant. It was very strange. There were even records of it in the history books. Song Qing-shu answered, "Are you trying to say that something happened between Zhen Mi and Chun Si-wang in the past year that made Chow Pai bear a grudge against them?" Zhao Min snorted lightly. "It's just a rumor. If something really happened with Chow Pai's narrow-mindedness, how could Cao Ji still be alive? You're talking about the situation where Chow Pai was kept in the dark. What if Chow Pai knew it from the beginning, or even instructed his wife to get close to Cao Ji?" Song Qing-shu said with a faint smile. Zhao Min frowned. "What nonsense are you talking about? Has Chow Pai lost his mind? Under normal circumstances, of course, a man wouldn't allow his wife to seduce another man. But what if there's a sufficient motive?" Song Qing-shu paused. "For example, the position of crown prince?" Zhao Min's eyes lit up. This time, she didn't refute him. Instead, she looked thoughtful. Song Qing-shu continued, "Your Highness, do you know when Cao Ji lost his position as crown prince? The most thorough time should be when Cao Ren was surrounded by Guan Yu. Cao Cao decided to send Cao Ji to rescue him, but in the end, Cao Ji got drunk at Chow Pai's place." Zhao Min paused. "But speaking of the first time he fell out of favor, it should be the rebellion in Shudu in the 23rd year of Jian." "That's right. Cao Ji was guarding the rear, but he neglected his duties and didn't notice the rebellion at all. It was then that Cao Cao became disappointed in him." Song Qing-shu changed the topic. "But Cao Ji is not a mediocre person. He also has a lot of capable people under him. If he didn't notice the rebellion, someone would have to talk about love to divert his attention. Song Qing-shu smiled mysteriously. You mean Jimmy? Zhao Min's expression changed. Although she was Mongolian, she was familiar with the Han culture. Being in a royal family, history was a compulsory course, so she quickly began to recall. The mastermind of that rebellion was indeed mainly from Hebei, Zhenmi's hometown. The scale of the rebellion was very small, and it was impossible to succeed. But the aftermath had a great impact and indirectly caused Chao Ji to fall out of favor. Song Qing-shu then said, Chao Pai used his wife to help him seize the position of crown prince. Naturally, he kept this a secret. Every time he saw Zhenmi, he couldn't help but think of what happened in the past. Naturally, he couldn't help but feel disgusted. That's why he gradually neglected her. It wasn't because she was old and faded. One must know that Zhenmi was only in her 30s when she died. Even Chen Yuan was still beautiful. As the empress, how could she be bad at taking care of herself? Although you have a lot of things, you do have great talent. I've never thought about it from this angle. Zhao Min couldn't help sighing. Song Qing-shu secretly felt lucky. He was just an ordinary person. It was just that he had more knowledge than the people in this world by a few hundred years. What he said just now was just a thought that came from reading an article by Prince Ma in his previous life. So, men are not the kind of people who are superficial based on appearance. Before Song Qing-shu could finish, Zhao Min glared at him fiercely. Using your wife to achieve your goal is despicable and shameless. Being unfaithful and fickle after it's done is even more disgusting. You men are really bastards. Song Qing-shu wanted to slap himself. He didn't expect to come back to the same point after beating around the bush. Not all men are like this. For example, I'm definitely not. Chapter 1505. No wonder you were inexplicably angry early in the morning. Song Qing-shu's face had an additional trace of an inexplicable smile. Is it very funny? Looking at his mischievous smile, Zhao Min only felt a nefarious fire rising from her chest and abdomen. Song Qing-shu saw that the situation was not right and hurriedly said, I didn't go out to fool around last night. I came back very early. Zhao Min snorted and did not say anything else. She directly moved to his side, and the two faces were almost touching. Looking at her delicate skin at such a close distance, Song Qing-shu sighed in his heart. Zhao Min grew up in Mongolia, but her skin was even fairer and more delicate than the girls in Jiangnan. She was indeed an existence that was blessed by the heavens. At such a close distance, Song Qing-shu could even smell the fragrance on her hair. His heart couldn't help but start thumping. It was as if he had become an innocent little virgin man again. What does she mean? Does she want to kiss me? But that's not like her character. Should I take the initiative? Just as Song Qing-shu was worrying about his gains and losses, Zhao Min wrinkled her nose and sniffed downwards. When she smelled his left chest and sleeve, she couldn't help but sneer. There's still the fragrance of another woman on your body. Don't tell me you went to compete with other girls last night. Instantly sweating like a waterfall, Song Qing-shu then realized that he had thought wrongly. As for the fragrance on his body, it was probably left behind when he hugged Qin Keqing yesterday. Zhao Min straightened her body and said indifferently. She even used the rouge and face powder from Qian's place. It seems like that woman came from a wealthy family. Sometimes I can't help but sigh that the taste of the woman you found is quite good. Song Qing-shu naturally knew that she wasn't praising him and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Zhao Min actually managed to guess Qin Keqing's identity so accurately with such a few clues. Such an intelligent woman really made people love and hate her. Usually, she would definitely be a great talent, but if he really married her, he wouldn't even be able to hide it from her. I'm really wronged. Yesterday, I thought that you were still waiting for me, so I came back without doing anything. Who knew that when I came back, you were already asleep? Song Qing-shu shrugged and said helplessly. Zhao Min blushed and turned her face away unnaturally. Who's waiting for you? Looking at her blushing face, Song Qing-shu secretly sighed. If she was placed in the 2D world of his future life, she would definitely be its Sundara. Princess. At this moment, Zhao Min's subordinate ran in from afar. He wanted to say something, but when he saw Song Qingshu next to him, he instantly shut his mouth. Zhao Min frowned. If you have something to say, just say it. He's not an outsider. Song Qingshu's expression changed, but he didn't say anything. However, he couldn't help but feel a trace of warmth in his heart. The subordinate revealed a surprised expression, and then replied, "The latest news, the Shixiao envoy has entered Prince Wei's mansion." Yaluisin? Zhao Min murmured to herself. Now that he's like the sun in the sky in the imperial court, and he's also the father of Princess, it's reasonable for the Shixiao envoy to visit him. Continue to send people to monitor him, and be careful not to alert the enemy. Yes. The subordinate saluted and quietly left. Zhao Min didn't take it too seriously, but Song Qingshu secretly frowned. The thought that Yilu Nanxian was about to marry the crown prince of Xixia made him extremely unhappy. This kind of unhappiness had nothing to do with love, but was determined by something engraved in the depths of male genes. "I'll go out for a while," Song Qingshu said in a low voice. Since he had bumped into them this time, he had to destroy the marriage between the two countries no matter what. "Okay," Zhao Min replied indifferently. Song Qingshu hurriedly took 2 steps outside, but suddenly stopped and looked back at Zhao Min with a faint smile. "I almost fell into the princess's trap." The corners of Zhao Min's mouth curled up slightly. "What plan do I have?" "It's mainly because you agreed too readily and revealed a flaw." Song Qingshu snorted. "You obviously want to know what Xixia and Liao are discussing, but Prince Wei's mansion is heavily guarded, and your subordinates can't go in to investigate at all. So you turned your attention to me and deliberately pretended to be indifferent. At the same time, you intentionally or unintentionally mentioned Yilu Nanxian's marriage to provoke me. You knew that with my temperament, I would definitely take the initiative to investigate." Zhao Min sighed. "Sometimes I still feel more relaxed around Zhang Wuji. When I'm with you, I always feel like I'm with an old fox." Now that the relationship between the two was extraordinary, mentioning Zhang Wuji was as normal as mentioning an ordinary person, and she wasn't afraid of breaking any taboo topics. Song Qingshu snorted with a straight face. "If I'm an old fox, then you're a 1,000-year-old fox spirit." Zhao Min smiled brightly. She was obviously very satisfied with this title. "Since you've seen through my evil plan, are you going to go or not?" "Of course." Song Qingshu raised his voice, but in the end, he still gave up. "Yes, I'm going." Overt schemes made people feel helpless. You obviously knew everything, but you still went in head first. Song Qingshu had been to Prince Wei's mansion before, so this time he could be considered to be familiar with the place. However, he still needed to be careful when sneaking in broad daylight. Of course, it was impossible for other masters of Jianghu to sneak into the heavily guarded Prince Wei's mansion, no matter how careful they were. Once he entered Prince Wei's mansion, Song Qingshu quickly found the place where Yelu Yisin was meeting the people from Western Xia from the direction where the servants were serving tea. He quietly looked inside from the window. The person sitting in the middle was naturally Yelu Yisin. There were also a few officials he did not know sitting in the room. Some of them were from Liao, and some were from Western Xia. They must be Yelu Yisin's trusted subordinates and envoys from Western Xia. But what surprised him was that there were a few old acquaintances in the room. There was a woman in white with a thin veil over her face sitting at the head of the table. Even if her face was covered, he could still see her watery eyes and the faintly discernible snow-white skin. With her graceful and alluring figure, he could tell at first glance that she was a great beauty. Aunt Ming. After Song Qingshu got over his initial shock, he soon felt relieved. Li Qinglu was in charge of Class 1 Hall, and she was even in Linen City when she investigated the Southern Song dynasty. Right now, it was only natural for her to come to Shangjing for the sake of the marriage between Western Xia and Liao. You want to take care of my wife on behalf of your brother? This time, I will definitely make you return in failure. Song Qingshu naturally understood the goal of her trip, and he became even more irritated. As for the people beside her, they were all familiar faces. They were the 4 great villains, led by Duan Yanqing. Western Xia is indeed the weakest among all the countries. Among its subordinates, only Duan Yanqing can be considered as a first-class player in the world of martial artists. The others are just too weak. Song Qingshu thought about it in secret, but he soon remembered that the strongest player in Western Xia was none other than Li Qiushui, who hid in the depths of the palace. Li Qinglu, who was trained by Song Qingshu, could handle the situation. The people inside were talking about some details of the wedding. While Song Qingshu was listening to them, a person suddenly burst in from the outside, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. "Dad, you have to help me." "What the hell?" Song Qingshu fixed his eyes on the man and saw that he was about 20 years old. He was quite handsome, but his steps were weak and there was a faint bluish-black color between his eyebrows. It was obvious that he had been hollowed out by wine and women. But the most striking thing about him was that his clothes were tattered and his face was bruised. It was obvious that he had been beaten up. "Father, you have to help me." The man hugged Yelu Isin's leg and howled. The room was still in a heated discussion, but it instantly quieted down. Outside the window, Song Qingshu's mouth twitched. He thought, is this Nanqian's brother, Yelu Sui? He had heard from Zhao Min that Yelu Isin had a son and a daughter. The daughter was naturally Yelu Nanxian, and the son was Yelu Sui. It was said that he was a particularly good-for-nothing, always leading eagles and dogs, and lingering in brothels. But in Song Qingshu's view, this was a common problem of good-for-nothing sons. He didn't know that he was so strange. Yelu Isin was obviously a little embarrassed. He quietly looked at the Western Xia people's faces and said angrily, "Bastard, don't you see where you are? I have guests here." Yelu Sui also realized that there were other people in the room. He didn't think much of it when he saw the others, but when his eyes fell on Li Qinglu, he suddenly showed a look of amazement. His whole body froze, his mouth wide open, and he couldn't say a word. Li Qinglu didn't get angry. She smiled and said, "Prince Wei, don't be angry. Your son's appearance is obviously caused by a beating. Let's hear what happened first." "I made a fool of myself in front of the princess." Yelu Isin's face became a little better. He kicked his son and said, "Stand up and talk properly." Yelu Sui finally woke up from his shock. With this reminder, the painful experience he had just experienced still got the upper hand. He hurriedly said, "Father, it's like this. Today I was walking on the street with some people, and I suddenly met a woman. Although she looked a bit older than me, and she had her hair combed into a woman's bun, she was truly a stunning beauty. That face, that figure, none of your concubines could compare to her. Perhaps only this princess could compare to her." "Shut up. Get to the point." Yelu Isin hurriedly interrupted him, his face gloomy. The Xixia people all had strange expressions on their faces. Even Li Qinglu's smile froze on her face. Song Qingshu, who was outside the window, almost laughed out loud. He found that he was starting to like this funny brother-in-law. He had already acknowledged Yelu Nanxian as his woman, so naturally, he also regarded Yelu Sui as his brother-in-law. Yelu Sui was also frightened by his father and didn't dare to gossip anymore. He hurriedly said, "Then I went up to make friends with her, who knew that she didn't give me any face and beat me up." Hearing this, everyone in the room snorted. Even if they didn't see it with their own eyes, they could imagine what the scene was like. Yelu Sui must have seen that the woman was beautiful and went up to flirt with her. He didn't expect that the beautiful woman was actually a martial arts master. Not only did he not get taken advantage of, but he was also beaten up. Useless things, a group of men like you were beaten up by a woman? Yelu Isin naturally knew that every time his son went out, he would bring a group of servants and thugs with him. Yelu Sui immediately became anxious. If she didn't have a precious sword in her hand that could cut through iron like mud, how could we not be able to beat her? Chapter 1506. Although Li Qinglu quickly covered it up, how could that momentary reaction be hidden from Song Qingshu, who had been observing the situation in the room? Li Qinglu is in charge of the first-class hall of Xixia, and her martial arts is one of the best to the younger generation. What could make her lose her composure like that? Song Qingshu said, thoughtfully, "A precious sword that can cut through iron like mud." You guys can't even beat a woman, and you still have the face to blame the weapon? Yalu Isin said with a look of exasperation. Get out, Li Qinglu advised at the right time. Prince Wei, you don't have to blame your son. There are many capable people in Jianghu, and they have weapons. You can't blame him for being at a disadvantage. Hearing her speak up for him, Yalu Sui immediately cast a grateful look at her, thinking that this princess of Xixiao was not only beautiful, but also considerate. Well, for the sake of Princess Yinchuan, I'll spare you this time. Get out of here, don't delay us from talking business. Yalu Isin glared at his son. Yalu Sui had no choice but to walk out resentfully. When he came out, he kept muttering, Recently, father has become more and more strict. Is it because he can't stand up for me in front of outsiders? At this time, Li Qinglu, who was in the room, secretly gave a look. One of her subordinates understood and quietly followed her out. None of this escaped Song Qingshu's eyes. He hesitated for a moment. Seeing that he couldn't hear any valuable information here, he quietly followed. He saw that the Xixiao man quietly caught up with Yalu Sui and indirectly asked about the woman he had met before. Because Li Qinglu had helped him just now, Yalu Sui also had a good impression of the Xixiao man. Soon, his emotions were aroused, and he described what had happened before in more detail. Song Qingshu secretly frowned, wondering why Li Qinglu was so concerned about this matter. Could it be that she wanted to stand up for Yalu Sui and use this to please Yalu Isin? But he quickly denied this speculation. After all, she was a dignified princess of a country, and it would be too low of a status to help a playboy bully others to please others. Just as he was feeling puzzled, a noise came from the hall. Song Qingshu hurriedly dodged to the side. It turned out that the Xixiao people had come out. In order to show their friendship, Yalu Isin even sent them to the door. Song Qingshu hesitated for a while and finally decided to quietly follow Li Qinglu and the others to see what she was up to. After all, everything that happened before was a little abnormal. At this time, on the outskirts of Shangjing, a beautiful young woman wearing an aqua blue fur coat suddenly stopped in her tracks. Your Excellency has followed me for so long. Shouldn't you show yourself? Her voice was crisp and soft. It was obvious that she was a very gentle woman. Little girl, your martial arts are really good. You can actually discover my whereabouts. After a burst of laughter, a black-clothed man jumped down from a nearby tree. Although it was daytime, he was still covered with a black cloth. However, from the white hair that could be seen, it could be seen that he was no longer young. The young woman's beautiful face flashed a trace of red. How old was her child? Why did he call her little girl? But she also understood that this black-clothed man was probably not young, so calling her little girl was not wrong. May I know why Senior is following me all the way? The black-clothed man smiled. Nothing else. I just want to borrow the sword that Madam is carrying to have a look. As he said this, he pointed to the sword on her back. The young woman's expression changed slightly. She replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. This is a relic of my late husband. It is not convenient to share it with others. Please forgive me, Senior. How could she not see that the other party came for this sword? As for borrowing the sword to have a look, it was just a formality. That's a pity. The black-clothed man sighed. Before he finished speaking, his figure moved. His whole body was like a black rock, blotting out the sky and covering the earth as he pounced on the young woman. The young woman was clearly on guard. With a flick of her wrist, a silver bell and golden chain shot towards the black-clothed man from an inconceivable angle. The black-clothed man's heart trembled, and he could only change direction midway to avoid the attack. The young woman didn't stop. The silver bell and golden chain in her hand moved like a flood dragon in the clouds. The black-clothed man cried out in alarm. Little girl, your martial arts have actually reached such a level. It is truly amazing. The young woman didn't feel the slightest bit happy. She had already pushed the chain to its limit, but it was still unable to do anything to the black-clothed man. It was clear that the black-clothed man's martial arts were far superior to hers. Sure enough, during this time, the black-robed man had already figured out her attack patterns. His figure suddenly flickered, causing the young woman's attacks to hit nothing but air. In just a few breaths of time, he was already within 3 feet of her. At such a close distance, the chain was useless. The young woman didn't panic and directly pulled out the long saber on her back. The edge of the saber was only half a foot away, but a cold azure light shot out. When the saber was unsheathed, the cold light flickered. Even with the black-clothed man's martial arts, he didn't dare to face it head-on. With a strange cry, he retreated 10 feet away. Seeing the cold light on the saber, the black-clothed man sighed in praise. It really is a legendary saber. The young woman frowned. Although her late husband's saber was a rare and good saber, its reputation in Jianghu was far inferior to the dragon saber. She didn't know why this man was so interested in this saber. The black-clothed man wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, he asked, "Little girl, have you heard of the story of treasuring a jade ring won in trouble?" "Of course I have." The young woman lightly snorted. At the same time, she was on guard. The black-clothed man in front of her was extremely skilled. If it was her in the past, she would have long since been no match for him. It was only thanks to the supreme technique that she was able to endure for so long. A charming blush suddenly appeared on the young woman's beautiful face as she recalled the process of cultivating this divine art. Even though the black-clothed man was quite old, he couldn't help but be a bit absent-minded, truly a peerless beauty. However, he was still a seasoned veteran. He quickly remembered the purpose of his trip and said, "This saber isn't something you can have. Forcefully keeping it will only bring you disaster." The young woman sneered, "I can't have it, but you can." The black-clothed man stood with his hands clasped behind his back, proudly saying, "This old man naturally has the ability to protect this saber." The young woman angrily said, "How can I give my late husband's relic to others? If you have the ability, then come and take it yourself." The black-clothed man's eyes turned cold. "Then this old man will have to offend you." He attacked again. His speed and palm wind were twice as fast as before. At first, the young woman was able to rely on the saber in her hand to barely hold on. However, after 20 moves, her attacks began to slow down, as if she would be hit at any moment. After a few more moves, the black-clothed man finally found an opening and pressed his palm on the saber. The young woman felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and her entire body fell to the ground. This time, the black-clothed man didn't give her a chance to catch her breath. He directly attacked in an attempt to snatch the saber away. At this time, the blood in the young woman's body was surging, and it would take at least 3 breaths for her to recover her combat strength. How could she resist at this point? Just as the black-clothed man was about to succeed, a shout suddenly came from not far away. The black-clothed man saw a golden object shooting toward him from the corner of his eyes. He didn't dare to be careless and could only give up on attacking. He flipped over and snatched the saber away. Looking at the golden dart stuck in a nearby tree, his expression changed for a moment. "Golden snake drill. Sister Icy Snow, are you all right?" At this moment, a girl with delicate eyebrows and eyes like a phoenix went over to support the young woman. Although she also had her hair combed into a young woman's bun, her skin was fair and rosy, even fairer than a young girl's, tender and pink. "Ching Ching, it's you?" The young woman was surprised and overjoyed. She had already adjusted the vital energy in her body, but what made her even happier was that she met an acquaintance. It turned out that this young woman was Hu Yidao's widow, Icy Snow. After she parted ways with Song Qing-shu, she had been secretly looking for clues about her husband's murderer, Morong Jingwei. Gradually, she came to Shangjing City. Who knew that she would run into a playboy as soon as she entered the city? After teaching him a lesson, she recalled that the servants claimed that he was Prince Wei's son and knew that Yelu Isin was extremely powerful. To avoid trouble, she planned to leave the city and lie low. Who knew that not long after she left the city, she would be pestered by this mysterious black-clothed man. As for the other woman with rosy skin, she was naturally Xia Qingqing. Initially, she wanted to take revenge on Dongfang Muxue for hugging Yuan Qingji. However, she learned from Dongfang Muxue that Yuan Qingji might not be dead. Surprised and overjoyed, she returned to Yanjing City with Dongfang Muxue. While helping Dongfang Muxue with political affairs, she began to investigate Yuan Qingji. In the end, she found out that someone had seen someone similar to Yuan Qingji in Shangjing City. Thus, she set off for this place. Along the way, she was thinking about what Dongfang Muxue said to her. So what if she found Yuan Qingji? Could she go back to the past and start all over again with him? Xia Qingqing was also very confused. Countless nights, she asked herself, if Yuan Qingji was still alive, who would she choose between him and Song Qingshu? Although her rationality told her that it would be Madame Yuan, she realized that Song Qingshu had completely occupied her heart, even though he was a philanderer and had a glib tongue. I'm really a bad woman. Even though she had made up her mind, she still decided to make a trip to Shangjing City to confirm Yuan Qingji's whereabouts and completely end her past. Just as she was worrying about her gains and losses, she suddenly heard the sound of fighting not far away. She ran over and saw that one of them was Icy Snow. When she first got together with Song Qingshu, both of them had met. Although she knew that she was Hu Yidao's widow, she also knew about the relationship between her and Song Qingshu. It was precisely because both of them were widows that they sympathized with each other. Although both of them were now considered love rivals to a certain extent, they didn't have any intention of fighting over a man's affection. Instead, they treated each other as bosom friends. Seeing that Icy Snow was in danger, how could Xia Qingqing just stand by and watch? She immediately shot out a few golden snake alls to save her. Golden snake sword. Seeing the shining golden sword in Xia Qingqing's hand, the man in black instantly hesitated. He wasn't afraid of the newcomer Xia Qingqing. Although her martial arts weren't weak, both of them were no match for him. What he was afraid of was the man behind Xia Qingqing, the Golden Snake King, Song Qingshu. Although Song Qingshu and Xia Qingqing had never made their relationship public, everyone was not blind and had more or less guessed it. There were always some rumors. However, because Song Qingshu's performance in recent years was too strong, no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. On the contrary, they felt that it was natural for Xia Qingqing to be with him. After all, a beauty matched with a hero. Since you recognize it's the Golden Snake Sword, do you still want to continue fighting? Xia Qingqing was also afraid of this man's martial arts. She was afraid that he would be forced into a life and death struggle. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.